This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseta. Good morning.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Download the InDriver app from the App Store or Google Play Store to enjoy a safe, comfortable, and affordable ride around Nairobi.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person. Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
The group of leaders we are having now, Kenyans, listen, the chemical composition is the same. You will mold them to ODM, then NASA, you mold them to Kano, mold them to Jubilee, mold them to any other different color sometimes, but the chemical composition is the same.
It's not about me as Nurdin Haji, but it's about the constitution that I swore to protect. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be investigators and also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position because that position is in the constitution and that's what Kenyans wanted.
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, you're creating and quoting anarchy. Then you create a very dangerous precedent.
A story is told of the first president of the country who also went to visit Madare, presidential tour. Yeah? And of course, he went to this place and he introduced himself. So one of the enemies says, kuna jina kama yangu.
SpiceFM, Nyeri.
Thursday. What does it look like this morning? And it looks like a little bit of traffic building up in certain parts of the city, but nothing of panic status just yet. We're looking at building up on the Thika Superhighway today, slowly chugging along towards the Pangani underpass. Coming out of Westlands, not too much of an issue right now. Don't forget, even before it starts, you have the option of using the Red Hill Link Road to get where you're going this morning. The eastern part of the city looking really good. It's building up a little bit here and there on Jogo Road, getting towards the Kamkunji roundabout. Huru Highway, free as air this morning. There's an opportunity for you to get into the city without too much trouble. Hopefully it continues this way and we keep things at a dull roar. Of course, we want to know if that is not the case. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127. Let's keep things moving this Thursday.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up,
9 minutes
not
after
down.
6, Thursday, first Friday of the week. How many more Fridays in January?
One.
You just said it's a Monday, which will have another Monday in January. Is it 5 Mondays in total?
There's 5 Mondays in January. There were 5 Wednesdays and 4 Fridays, I think.
Okay, now. It's the 27th day. There's still more days this month. How are you doing? Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. Ndu?
Yes.
How body?
How body day inside cloth, so no shaking. No shaking.
No shaking.
No shaking.
Huh? City?
We just day flange.
I am also not shaking.
Are you not shaking?
No, I'm not shaking. I am actually just well.
Shaking.
Flange.
Shaking like a Polaroid.
Is it shaking or shaky?
Shaking now. No shaking, as in stable.
Oh, steady.
That's the word. No shaking. Everything is all right.
Everything is okay.
Even if it's not.
Hakuna
It's steady.
tremors.
Even if it's not,
Kuna earthquake.
we go dey steady.
Okay.
Which equals I am super fine.
Fantastic.
But nothing can shake you.
Shida.
Even if there's wala.
Umekwenda. Today is TBT.
What is that?
Hashtag TBT. Hashtag Throwback Thursday.
Oh, ndizo.
Yeah. So there's a photo of you that has been posted here. That's you, right? That's you, Ndu, right?
Yeah.
How old were you here?
I think I was 5.
Cute little thing.
Telling you, it started early.
You can't have been 5 here.
I was 5. Seriously, I was 5.
I'd have thought 3. Or 4.
If you look at that earring,
They started dressing up the princess early.
the one on our left, which is actually her right, it tells you she couldn't have been 3.
Good.
And even that smile,
And the smile.
indicates clearly she couldn't have been 3.
The
A
hairstyle
3-year-old
is almost
smiling
the
is
same.
very different.
It's different
Very, very different.
from a
A
5-year-old.
3-year-old smiling probably makes it. The smile will look like more like they're trying to make a face.
Yeah.
My dad was a photographer,
Uh-huh.
so he said smile.
Uh-huh. So do you remember this day?
I remember this day actually. Yeah, I do.
So you tell us.
Oh, you're waiting for the
This
story. No, my dad was taking pictures. My dad was his hobby was photography, and he was taking pictures that day, and he made us all get dressed up. And I turned 5 the day before actually, so it was the day after my birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so my dad was doing the thing, and there it was. My best friend was there as well, so it was just a. My dad would do things like that. Wake up Saturday morning, let's take pictures. Oh yeah, everybody go get
Everybody
dressed up.
dress up.
No, but,
And we would just do them in the house.
I mean, look at color coding, match, the frock, earrings, very nice.
Yeah.
Very
I had a blue skirt on. It was great.
Should do that hairstyle next week.
I said, but in the other pictures, I should do it next week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning
Welcome to the
we'll do the
conversation,
Thank you.
everybody. Today is also Justice Thursdays. We will have somebody in the studio joining us at 8 a.m. this morning, and this is the Executive Director of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, NCAJ. This is a council that is established by law. It's chaired by the Chief Justice. It brings together all stakeholders in the justice sector. This includes the judiciary, the DPP, the DCI, the EACC, the prison services, some NGOs that are, involved in the justice sector, all of them. So the executive director will be here to tell us the work of the NCAJ and what it does to ensure efficient service delivery to everybody who seeks justice. That and more coming up. Let's start with the COVID numbers quickly.
All right, really quickly, 363 million. Another 5 million in one day, guys, and that's the numbers that we are looking at today. I want to look really quickly at what's happening in Kenya. Yesterday, there's positivity rates that actually felt pretty low, and that was good. Where we are today with numbers and we're still waiting for reports in terms of what committees are doing with vaccinations in schools. But yeah, we're yet to know what that is. We're waiting for that. 182 new cases of COVID. More importantly, positivity rate of 3.3%. So there was that scary period where over about 3 weeks, there was a positivity rate of above 25%, but that has dropped significantly. And now it's manageable levels, which is where you want to keep it. The good thing, though, another report that's come to the Ministry of Health is that these new cases that we are seeing are mild cases. Nobody is in a critical condition.
Nobody needs hospitalization.
No, and we're not seeing hospital admissions bursting at the seams. So it's a manageable thing. The place that is a lot of emphasis, however, is being put on is vaccinations. That more and more people need to be vaccinated as much as we can.
And the booster shots as well.
And the booster shots. So I think that's a new point of communication, which unfortunately Dr. Hwale and his team have not insisted on as openly But I know it's something that initially they said, look, you can go ahead and get your booster shots now, and that's all right. So encouraging more and more people to go and get that done.
Remember, there was a hiatus. There was a period when you got your first shot, you waited for a certain period of time before you got your second one.
Yes.
Is there a waiting period for the booster also?
6 months.
6 months after you get the second one, if you were getting the twin vaccinations done. So 6 months after your second one is when you should get the booster. So you're coming to round about that actually, CT. Yeah, isn't it? So I think it's safe that you can actually get it done then. I think the mistake that a couple of folks did, unfortunately, and there was a story about that, really short one though, is that people heard that, all right, you should get a booster shot and had not waited the time period and went ahead and got, shot in the arm and maybe shouldn't have done it in the time that they did.
So they're getting like a booster after 2 days after getting the second shot.
You can get a booster. Okay, let's go. Well, I just got it the other day, so I think that's information that needs to be put out there.
Yep. We are live streaming the show on SpiceFM TV, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're also having conversations on Instagram, SpiceFM KE. Many people are online. If you are, join the queue and say hello to us. Any of those we'll be saying hello to the show after we take a look. This is the situation. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. SpiceFM.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
No, this wheelbarrow, how can you give people wheelbarrow? His party symbol is an umbrella. Is he distributing umbrellas in Makueni?
Have you been told if we don't lock between 10 to 4, this is what we're saving?
You try and call them, the same person who was in your house every day, because they know you are influential and you will give them votes. Call them after 1 month and see if they'll pick up their phone.
Don't tell your member of parliament that you want him to come and build a school, you want him to come and do a hospital. That is not the work of the member. Now that we have devolution in this country, these resources should go to those devolved units.
You have to have strong, independent institutions. And you have to have police who has the right to take the biggest town in the country and question, why did you do this and that, and send them to court if necessary.
Joel in Kericho, good morning.
Salama sana Eric, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama kabisa. Mbunge wako ni nani?
Anaitwa Silvanus Martin, hapa ni Ainamoi.
Silvanus Martin, Ainamoi.
Yes. Sasa ile juma nampambia yeye nini? Amalize aende. Asante sana.
That's it.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
The weather with Spice FM.
We'll see highs over 26 and lows of 16 today. Nakuru is clear at 13, highs of 27. We'll see highs of 26 and Nyeri is clear at
SpiceFM. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.
It's after 6. Kenya's biggest conversation is online, and people are online as well. Who's online?
Joshua Monguru Ishmael is tuned in from a place I cannot pronounce this morning. It's in Kisii County. He says hello and good morning.
You can't pronounce what? Kisii Nyatieko.
That one, yes.
Kinyozi.
The other one had me at. Anyway, Molly says, good morning. Well represented. Governor Chumba, okay, is in Doha in Qatar. 87.9. Where is that?
That's in Doha, Qatar. Mombasa.
This is somebody else now.
Mombasa.
That's where James Oliver Muli is tuned in from. And Benson Momo says, good morning. Amasongole John tuned in this morning as well. Himaki Nandi County is where George Kiplagat is tuned in from this morning. And Balasi Nathaniel says good morning. Kamau Anthony, Jane Jesh, Maina Wanyeri, Mbuchi Kiamtugu says good morning. Noah Kiganda, Ondicho, good morning to you. Kamakaweda indeed. Robert Kipkemboy says hello. Yes, Stanley, we know Nigeria's out of AFCON. On to the last 8. Indeed, that's where we are, on to the last 8. Good morning to you too. Vincent Ogutu says, good morning, in as well as Beta Ashley this morning. So many other folks in the room this morning. MCR, we see you. Good morning. Tuning from Mombasa, as well as Benson Mumo. Tony Otieno also tuned in. And Edgar Odeke says, we there, we outside. Indeed. I can see all of you, can't get to all of you, but we're so happy to have all of you in the room this morning. Good morning.
Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. CT, the proverb.
Mchonga mwiko.
Yes.
I was waiting for you to come down.
I'm good.
Mchonga mwiko hukimbiza mkono wake.
Mchonga mwiko hukimbiza mkono wake.
From Mwiko, I know everything. Before Mwiko, I don't know that.
Moto.
Mchonga.
Mkono.
I know those ones.
You know mkono. You know wake.
Yes.
So?
Mchonga is what I don't know.
Kuchonga, do you know?
Kuchonga.
How do you make a mwiko?
Out of wood?
Yeah, the process of making it is kuchonga.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
So now?
Say it again.
Mchonga mwiko hukimbiza mkono wake.
No, I'm doing a direct translation. It's probably not correct.
No, the direct translation is interesting. At least you are heading in the right direction. Because directly it means that the person who chongas mwiko runs with his hand. But the meaning is actually different.
Yeah.
Because when you have a mwiko, okay, and you are cooking, think about it. What does it spare you? It provides a service, it eases certain functions, but there's something else.
Stops you from burning.
Goody. Saves your hand from being in direct contact with the fire.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now, translate the proverb into English.
The maker of a mwiko, the best I can translate is a wooden spoon, because that's what it is, saves his hand from the fire.
Pass.
Make sense?
Pass. Okay. Let's look at the newspaper headlines. And remember, you can access the Standard e-paper from the Apple App Store or Play Store. And you can also access all this premium content on www.standardmedia.co.ke. In the headlines this morning, I have one.
Okay.
3 senior Kenya Power officials charged with sabotage. 3 senior Kenya Power officials were yesterday charged with sabotage and negligence of duty after the state dropped similar charges against 6 of their colleagues. So those who were charged are Raphael Ndolo, who is the acting general manager for network management, David Kamau, who is the manager transmission and network management, and Julius Moneki, second assistant engineer transmission department. They were in charge of the central office, and they denied the 2 counts in relation to a power blackout experience across the country on the 11th of this month. The Kahawa Law Court's Chief Magistrate Diana Mochache directed Ndolo, Kamau and Mwaniki to deposit £1 million cash bail with an alternative survey and surety bond of 2 million shillings. She ordered them to appear in the court on the 7th of March. According to the charge sheet, Ndolo, Kamau and Mwaniki were accused that on diverse dates between November 29th last year and January 11th this year, they jointly with other Kenya Power employees unlawfully with intent to sabotage failed to maintain and reinforce the Dandora-Embakasi high-voltage power lines that supply electricity to Kenyans, leading to the collapse of towers 11, 12, 13, 14 in Nairobi's Maradaima. So that's what they have been charged with. That between November and January this year, they failed to maintain and reinforce the power lines, the high-voltage power lines.
Okay.
Which led to the collapse.
Okay. Right.
So because of that, they have been charged with sabotage and negligence. Okay?
Yeah.
All right.
I understand the charge.
Uh-huh.
Who is it who is charged with the duty of ensuring that all these pylons and all these lines are actually in working order? Who?
Them.
And they're employees of Kenya Power?
Yes.
What does Ketraco do?
These particular lines. Remember the other day when there was a whole conversation about Ketraco taking over infrastructure that has previously been under Kenya Power. So apparently for all these years, we have been having some duplication of duties. Some old power lines that were there when Kenya Power was the generator, transmitter,
everything,
distributor. Some old power lines remained under the management of Kenya Power.
For what reason?
For whatever reason, the companies decided.
For the reason which they know.
For the reason which they know. Okay? And then Ketraco now started building their own. For example, Loyangalani knew theirs. The one they built, Suswa, all the way to Isinya, theirs. Such. So it so happens that this particular transmission line from the Seven Forks coming to Imaradaima is still under the management and maintenance of Kenya Power. And the Kenya Power engineers are the ones in charge of these lines.
Oh.
Kusana.
Hey. These people are in trouble.
Now the question is, did they willingly do all these things?
Or is it just, there's something like unconscious negligence?
If you are in charge, remember how
you're in charge, you can't, because that's what you're supposed to be doing.
You are in charge.
So if you didn't check up on them,
the buck
or you
stops
didn't maintain them as they were to be maintained, the question is, then what were you doing there? Because that makes up part of your job.
They know very well this is not the person who worked with a spanner to go around tightening those bolts.
Yes.
They know full well. However, you are in charge, the buck stops.
So you have the GM for network management, you have the manager for transmission network management, and you have the second assistant engineer for transmission.
Right.
Okay. Now the question, remember there's a time when Ndu, you said, you read a story which was saying that the matter of procurement for maintenance had been taken to the board.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the question is, had these officials raised requisitions for procurement of the required
infrastructure for the required maintenance, right?
For the required maintenance.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about, there are those times when you even hear Kenya Power people telling you, this transformer has blown and there's none in the store. Yes, you're the engineer, but there's no transformer in the store.
What am I supposed to do?
And you're not the one who goes to buy transformers.
You don't supply the transformer.
You don't supply the
transformer. You don't know where
it
comes from. You don't know. All you're supposed to do is walk in, see said transformer, do the thing, move out. Now, if it is not there, what then are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Valid question.
I have a feeling that these are the fall guys.
Yeah.
Eric, but of course they are.
These are fall guys. Basically, they've just been primed like this, and these are the guys who are being made to... They had to raise 1 million shillings each, cash,
Bond.
to walk out of police custody. 1 million shillings each.
It's a lot of money.
Plus to a surety bond of 2 million. That is a lot of money.
Eric, of course they are the fall guys, but they are not without fault.
Mm-hmm.
You see, if you know the workings of the organization, by the time you rise up and become to the point where you're a general manager,
yes,
you're a manager,
yes,
you're an engineer in charge, you have responsibilities, and you understand your duties because you've been in that institution for some time.
Yes.
Okay? You know what happened. Now the question is, when they eventually come to answer for the charges that have been leveled against them, are they going to spill the beans and speak the truth as they know it? Or are they going to comply, negotiate, and bear the brunt of being the fall guys? Because anything such as this, we know full well it can't be these three guys who are in charge. They have their duties, yes, but the other people who give the nod and who actually direct and who determine what actually happens. He can be general manager all he likes, but the truth of the matter is that he is not the person who has the final say in these matters.
He doesn't have the final say.
No, he doesn't.
So the question is, I mean, it has really exposed the rot within Kenya Power, this whole kerfuffle with the collapsed transmission lines.
Remember yesterday when we were talking with the what we want to realize about building government institutions is that this veil of secrecy seems to prevail. Remember the Ministry of Health and the issues that have arisen with procurement? You had a whole CS telling that, he couldn't access certain things. CS. Yes. He was not privy to certain things. CS.
This CS is not privy to contracts entered.
Yes.
By this government.
Yes.
On STR.
Yes.
This CS was here yesterday.
Yes. He's not privy.
So if the cabinet is not aware
of what's going on, then they're also saying, just like the engineer who walks into the storeroom and he's supposed to see the transformer and do his job, that's all they're supposed to do. They receive certain information and data, all they're supposed to do is implement. The rigors of everything else, they have no idea.
Yep.
So there's no difference even between cabinet and
nothing at all.
A task force is put in place
by the president.
My friend.
And it answers only to the president.
You are stonewalled at every move. At every move you are stonewalled.
Cut off at your knees, man.
Let's take a break. Take a look at traffic. 27 minutes to 7. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
There's so many people peddling what is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
he's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort. Nafandi umbo yako iko na
ni umba special.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, just like that, it's building up on Mombasa Road this morning, and we're looking at in and outbound traffic all the way from the SGR, then out towards General Motors. Before that, a little trickle before the Way Bridge and Sabaki. Okay, industrial area is also lighting up, but Uhuru Highway doesn't look too bad right now. Coming from Langata Road also won't be too much of a problem now. It is building up as you go along. Gong Road also, the dot of traffic has begun. And then there's a Thika Superhighway where there was no traffic about 30 minutes ago. But now it's a different story, way past now the Utali Drift and building. Also building up on Kiambu Road this morning and a little bit on Limuru Road. Limuru Road has really started to do the thing, showing you who she is in 2022. Coming out of Westerns as well, some traffic this morning, keep an eye on that. Outer Ring also looks pretty good for most parts, but we know that it will build up as the minutes tick by. Shall we talk about it? If it gets a bit sticky, talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice FM, Malindi. Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
There's a bizarre tale of a woman in a homicide-suicide who lived a double life. I told you every day you'll find and you continue to find stories like this. A bizarre tale has emerged after the suicide of a 28-year-old woman who also poisoned her 2 young daughters at Ithanga. Mary Mulombe, who was known as a humble and God-fearing woman at Katitika village, was living a precarious double life. Her in-laws and friends from the village knew Miss Mulombe as an orphan and had been brought up by her foster parents, but after her death it has emerged that both parents were alive and she regularly kept in touch with them. She had lied to her husband, Christopher Masila Kituku, a Kenya Defense Forces officer based at the coast, that she was brought up by foster parents after her mother died while she was a toddler. The foster parents benefited from Kituku's family through support in social events like weddings and stepped up in any case of financial needs. Domitila Waeni, the deceased sister-in-law, narrates that they were in good terms with their in-laws and would occasionally call them to check on them. After Mulombe took her own life, the foster parents disowned their daughter. When the homicide-suicide story was aired on KTN, the deceased cousin recognized her and alerted her parents, who started looking for her in-laws. We are in total disbelief. People who we had known to be our family disowned their daughter, and others claiming to be the parents emerged mourning the loss of 3 family members. It was difficult to bear. It sounded like a movie script. And to be sure that the latest entrants were the Mulombe's parents, they demanded for proof. So do you follow me so far? Foster parents lost their child, said they don't know. Real parents jump out of the woodwork, said, excuse me, our daughter is dead, but this is our daughter. Okay. We could not agree to be conned a second time. The deceased father-in-law, Peter Kituku Nzioka, narrates. The couple produced their daughter's Huduma number card and identity card. The deceased had told her parents, who run a business in Boni Kimutua village, Makueni County, that her husband worked in Somalia as a KDF officer, and her parents-in-law were sickly and could not talk, while her brothers-in-law were drunkards, a justification she gave for not introducing them over the 6 years she was married to the soldier. What astonished us most is the discovery that she talked to her parents on a daily basis and they had no ill feelings towards us. Mulombe even sent them money whenever they needed it without our knowledge. This is according to the deceased's mother-in-law. After the foster parents, quote-unquote, vanished after the death of Mulombe, her in-laws had to negotiate for a bride price before they could hold a burial ceremony for the 3 bodies. 3 bodies being Mulombe and her 2 daughters. Mulombe left a 5-page suicide note, I guess it's not a note, more like a book, in which she listed 14 reasons she decided to commit suicide and poison her children, key among them being her husband's alleged unfaithfulness. In the note, Mulombe listed the names of 5 women she accused her husband of 6 years of having affairs with. She termed it betrayal, but assured her husband of her undying love, even in death. She further disclosed that she had 80,000 shillings in her M-Pesa and 100,000 in her bank account, whose ATM she had put together with the note. She went ahead to provide the PIN to the M-Pesa and the ATM.
Yani, okay. So, woman gets married to man, soldier. Woman introduces man, soldier, and his family, that is parents, siblings, to
fake parents,
a fake couple.
Yes.
And says, these are my parents.
Yes, my parents died
family
when I was young.
embraces this woman's fake family. Whenever they even have family functions, they invite this fake family.
Yes.
And the fake mother and father always appear.
Tight bond.
Woman commits suicide, kills her 2 children.
Yes.
Fake family disappears. Real family emerges, and they even say...
After they saw it on TV.
After they see it on TV.
Yes.
They're like, what do you mean? And then they realize that now the in-laws realize, in fact, this woman has been talking to her actual and real parents.
Daily. Yes. It's crazy.
So what is it that could have led to this lies? I mean,
why would she lie that her parents were dead and she clearly
why
had a good relationship
why
with
procure
them?
some 2 strangers and
the
make
strangers
them act
agreed to
for so long?
Yeah, the strangers agreed to this for at least 6 years to pretend to be her parents because they took off when she died.
It gets, if you take that view, it'll sound complicated, but if you take the view that they were employed. And
they were employees.
And they were receiving.
Because they were receiving gifts from father and brother.
They must also have been receiving some
son-in-law.
A steady supply
from her as well.
Yes.
As payment.
So, and you don't have
Kazi
to appear,
Meisha.
and you don't have to appear at work every day.
No. And when you do, just appear to be humble and everything, you know.
So when she died, they were basically just declared redundant.
When she died, they disappeared.
That's why they disappeared.
Yeah. Now, what are you saying you're doing there? They disappeared.
Aye.
And her parents wondering, what's going on here? We speak to this girl every day. We're all right.
This story is not complete yet.
And the parents know, the parents actually know she is married. The parents know, however, that her husband is in Somalia.
And the husband's parents are too sickly, old and sickly. But
And
the parents...
the real parents know that her current husband, his brothers are drunkards, the parents are sickly, he is in Somalia. That's why you've never met any of them.
And she convinced them never even to seek to come to visit.
Yeah.
You're saying it's incomplete.
No, it's complete.
There are gaps.
It's incomplete. There is something about this lady's life that hasn't been told here. By the time someone decides to do what she did, okay, there are those who would argue it's a mental condition that she has. But what is it? What is the genesis of it? Why was there this great need for her to lie to her parents?
What is she running away
What is she running away from?
I think you are now on the right trajectory. What is it that made her present this particular image? What is it about her life that required her to be duplicitous?
It is bizarre because then it would appear that she still did have a good relationship with her parents because they
But
talked
only
on
her
a daily
parents.
basis. Only her parents, though.
Because then I think the gaps also would be, did she visit her parents?
Yeah.
Did she visit that village? Do people in this village know
her.
that she is married and that she...
And also, remember, the paid employees would appear anytime parents were required.
Yes.
But you want to ask the question, did they not ever inquire whether she has siblings, she has relatives, she has...
But you've been paid. I'm sure she told them.
No. She told them, remember, she said she was brought up by foster parents after her mother died when she was a toddler.
Oh, you're saying, did the husband's parents never ask her? Right, okay, sure. Did the husband's parents never ask her, who are your siblings, etc.?
And that's what I'm saying. Even if they did, I don't know. My mother died
These are
when
my
I was a
foster
toddler.
parents.
These are the ones who brought me up. So this is not my real mother. These are my foster parents. My actual mother died when I was a toddler. So I don't know whether I had siblings. I don't know my relatives.
You know why I ask?
Yeah.
Africans, Kenyans want to know where you came from.
Of course.
Where? Okay, where were your parents from what you hear? They want to know. So long as your parents who died, those parents would have relatives. Those parents would have their siblings.
But I think there's a straight answer to this.
Yeah.
As long as if your parents died and then you're brought up by other people who are not even relatives, it tells you there's a story that you can read there. My relative did not even belong to me. My mother had that is going to relationship with her relative. That's what they do when they follow up. So these guys who are quoted and raised don't know anything.
That they picked me up when I was young.
Yeah. And even they can come in and corroborate that story and say, we tried to establish. We just wanted to help them. Yeah. It's 7:15. Time for a quick break.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. Spice up your life.
Okay, CT, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at page 2 of the Star. Remember the questions that we keep asking about the mental health challenges that our police officers are men and women in blue face.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
There's a report here by someone called Cyrus Ombati. And the National Police Service Commission, apparently conducted a survey recently which showed that 12 to 13% of the officers had mental issues. 12 to 13% of the
police officers
had mental issues.
Sorry.
What? Okay, let's do again. Survey conducted when? Where?
Recently, by the National Police Service Commission. Yes.
Nationwide.
Yes.
12% is around how many officers?
There are 110,000 police officers in the country.
So around about 12,000 plus.
1 in every 12 that you meet, essentially, is what you're saying.
Yes.
That's a high number.
Oh, it's very high. It's very, very, very high. However, and then we also ask the question of what is being done about it. There is a hospital in Kenya called the Chiromo Hospital Group. It's run by one Dr. Frank Njenga. Okay.
Yes.
They seems to have an arrangement with the National Police Service, and they are training police officers. They started off with the senior most police officers, and the understanding was to try and get police officers to understand how it is you can identify these triggers bright and early.
Yes.
And so that you can actually address them.
Yes.
And the idea is to cascade them. Once you start with the senior officers, you cascade it further and further down so that people who are in the police services have the tools, as in they are trained to understand, trained to be able to identify problems that may occur which are stress related, and in so doing it gives them an upper hand and puts them in a position where they can actually now refer these particular police officers in a timely fashion to institutions where they can receive the help. So the steps that we're asking about and asking what steps are being taken, apparently the steps have begun. But it's a good step, because once you're trained to identify it, you see, it doesn't start with someone waking up in the morning and shooting everybody.
No.
It starts with their behavior, certain things that they do which may not be usual. These are the things that they are going to be trained to understand and identify.
Sure.
Yes. So if you're not used to scratching your head and you're scratching your head every day.
One.
Okay. There's a big question.
Big.
And the answers are being looked for. And lawmakers are probing the whereabouts of 1.3 billion shillings in COVID emergency funds.
How much?
1.3 billion.
Only.
Bangi. A parliamentary committee is investigating the whereabouts of 1.3 billion shillings collected by the COVID-19 task force to cushion Kenyans against the pandemic. Remember that task force? Captains of industry,
the Harambee Committee, led by the Kenya Breweries,
the captains
MD,
of industry,
and bringing together people like Dr. James Mwangi,
yes,
KCB CEO,
Indeed.
Joshua Oigara,
who's who,
and the who's who. Yeah. Right. So they collected money.
They did.
Okay.
Do you remember at some time we were asking where did that money go? What was it being used for?
Yeah.
I guess now we're not the only ones asking.
We went hoarse
We did.
asking that question.
This follows revelations by the Treasury Principal Secretary Julius Muya that the ministry was not part of the board nor aware of the whereabouts of the money collected by the task force established by President Uhuru Kenyatta. Speaking when they appeared before the Public Accounts Committee chaired by Ugunja MP Opio Wandanyi, the PS revealed that the monies were not reflected in Treasury's accounts. They did a Houdini. According to the Auditor General Nancy Gathungu's 2019-2020 financial year report on utilization of the funds, the fund had collected 1.3 billion by December 31st, 2020. The COVID-19 Emergency Response Fund was formed on the 27th of March 2020 to, among others, facilitate voluntary contributions to help in the fight against the disease. The fund was to mobilize resources for an emergency response towards containing the spread, effects and impact of the pandemic. But according to Mr. Muya, the monies are not included in the books since the fund was later turned into a private limited company, something that caught the attention of MPs who termed the move illegal. Voila, since it was set up under the PFM Act. It was also revealed that despite Kenyatta directing the ministry to come up with an emergency fund, the National Treasury was not included in the formation of the board of the same. It was revealed that in June 2020, the fund registered a private company and named it the Kenya COVID-19 Emergency Fund Limited, which continued collecting public funds.
Okay, so what are the questions? What is Opio Wandanyi looking for?
The big question is, where's the money?
Okay,
It's not in the account.
No, sir.
Have they asked the task force?
That's why they are probing now.
Yeah, but that money was not intended to sit in the account, was it?
So now, if it had done something, Nancy Gathungu is also saying that she cannot see.
Well, she can't see it in the Treasury account. So where were they taking the money?
But have these people, these individuals who are in
this task force,
have they been asked to account for it and have they refused?
Now they are probing.
The question, though, is, in such instances, when it's a presidential task force, okay, it brings in captains of industry, are there guidelines on, so when you're collecting money from the public and on behalf of the public for public good and public trust, where do you hold the money? Are there guidelines such as those in the public finance management law that says that money you shall create a special account in the National Treasury and this is how the money shall be spent? Because also you can ask the question, why was there nobody from the National Treasury who was also seconded to this
of
one?
the board, right? Secondly, why was this public fund, which was set up by the president, then turned into a private company?
Yeah.
Because then what happens when you turn it into a private company is that you can open a bank account to keep said money that you're asking about.
Yeah.
Public fund, it should be kept somewhere in the public arena. Now, when it is turned into a private and limited company, then it's easy for you to open a bank account and those funds would be there. Which is why they're saying the reason there was no storage for said money is because the fund had already been changed into a limited
company.
So the money would not be seen in the public
You know, the
sphere.
moment you introduce investigations and investigations by Parliament, what is being implied here is a malfeasance. Something didn't quite work out the way it should and something is not okay.
Yeah.
But did they have to go this route? Have they taken the time to actually ask those people who are involved? Or this is the method that they have chosen to follow?
This is the beginning. This is what triggers. You see, they react to the Auditor General's report. So the Auditor General flags something. The Public Accounts Committee
now starts asking.
Says, okay, so there's something that has been flagged by the Auditor General. So that forms the basis for our investigation. So the first person that we ask is
Muya.
the National Treasury. National Treasury, so where is this money? National Treasury comes and says, we were not in the board, we were not involved in this. Next steps, call these chaps. Ask them, so where is the money?
And probably in the coming days, you will see that they will call them. The captains of industry headed by, what's?
Jen Gadung.
Exactly.
Yes.
So she will be called in, also start asking questions. Where, how did this? And then also the problem of what they are calling the illegality of setting up a private company to take care of public funds. Problem there.
Yeah. And all these questions, whenever you see these things, you ask yourself, Where's the Auditor General? I'm not the Auditor General. Where's the Attorney General?
Attorney General.
Where's the Attorney General knows, okay, so Mr. President, you're setting up a task force. So this is how you set up a task force.
And this way you take them. You know, it's us who don't know these things. Those who are in the know. Because this isn't the first time we've had a Harambee committee. No. So in the previous Harambee committees, the money, where were the money collected? Where did they store it? Where did they keep it?
Maybe these were games.
See, it raises a fundamental question, in my opinion. It's a good question in that whenever you then go to the public to solicit for funds, okay, just so that we understand, where is the money kept?
Yes.
Then we'll ask about the usage later. And we've asked that question. And I would have thought that something such as this one, they are the ones who would be furnishing us with the information without us asking and saying, yes, we've collected this. Now, in this period, this is what we've done with this money. Move forward swiftly. Again, tell us, this is what we've done with this money. But did we see that happening?
No, there was a lot of opacity.
All the time. This fund that's collecting money, that you had individuals from around the country, you had corporate entities who were then donating on a regular basis. We heard this. And then the question was, when we started seeing that government was now releasing money to the vulnerable, Kazim Tani had been set up, we started asking, now, this Harambee fund, you people and the money that you people have been collecting, where is it going? Where is this money going?
One of the biggest donors into that fund was Dr. James Mwangi.
His
family.
Yes.
They contributed billions of shillings. And he said, the money that I contributed, we went and worked on this, and the other. But what was the procedure? That is the issue. So you contributed 8 billion shillings. Does it sit somewhere? Then is it being controlled by the board? Or is it being under secretary? Was there a secretary to this board even? These are captains of industry who are senior people in the private sector, who are leading big companies, listed companies. They know issues of corporate governance.
They do.
So,
what happened?
Yeah.
That's the question.
All right. So, it's gone to Parliament. I'm sure we will get answers, won't we?
We will. A quick one before we get to the top of the hour.
This one is an interesting one. Remarried widow to inherit deceased husband's property.
Remarried widow.
High Court has ruled that a widow who did not have children with her husband will now inherit the property and not his parents. Stephen Waura Kungu died on April 26, 2019 in Nairobi. He left a widow, Elizabeth Gishugu Ngari, whom he married in 2008 under Kikuyu customary law, but did not have a biological child. Elizabeth's father-in-law, Peter Kimani, moved to court seeking to have the son's property inherited by him since she did not have any child with Maura. He said the widow had left out a foster child that his deceased son was taking care of as his own. He claimed Elizabeth had remarried and had gotten a child. The court looked at all these things that were going on and said, you know something? The guy died, he was still married to this woman. Next of kin.
Was there no ruling from the same courts that had a different implication?
About? That
if you inherit matrimonial property, once you remarry, you lose it.
No. The man died. So?
It wasn't divorce.
No. The guy died. He was married. Thereafter, after the husband had died. Yes, I've heard it as well. But the remarrying is if the husband is still alive. You remarry, he's still alive. Now, when he dies, after the two of you have parted ways, you are not entitled to it.
Yeah, in the next hour. Because it's a big case also at the Supreme Court. Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Wherever you tuned in this morning, a very good morning. We're glad you're listening. It's 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Good morning. This is Newswire. Dennis Asato. The Senate has passed the Political Parties Amendment Bill, with all amendments being rejected. 28 senators voted to endorse it, while 3 opposed it. The bill required a minimum of 24 elected senators to vote in support to have it sail through. The Speaker of the Senate is now expected to write to his National Assembly counterpart, informing him of the development, after which the bill will be sent to President Uhuru Kenyatta for assent. Earlier, 6 senators had proposed amendments which were rejected by the House. The 6 included Elgeyo Marakwet, Kipchumba Murkomen, Samson Cherargei of Nandi, Kitui Senator Enoch Wambua, Muranga's Irungu Kanata, and the nominated senators Petronila Were and Isaac Mwaura. Cherargei said the bill was ambiguous. Kenya leader Martha Karua now says she is open to forming political coalitions after consulting with the party's hierarchy during a meeting in Laikipia County. According to Karua, Kenya will announce its coalition partners in due time after concluding talks with Mount Kenya residents, who she says will play a considerable role in determining the path the political outfit will take ahead of the August general elections. She was speaking in Nyahururu, Laikipia Western County, when she met the party's area delegates, political aspirants and members. According to Karua, her entourage will continue holding similar meetings in all the counties of Mount Kenya before making a final announcement on which political factions to side with. Chama cha Kazi Party leader Moses Kuria has termed the Azimio la Umoja movement, which was launched by Orange Democratic Movement leader Raila Odinga on December 10th, as a bad idea fronted by the wrong people for all the wrong reasons. Kuria said that the ODM-led coalition will not prevail. His comments come at a time when different political parties and leaders are stepping up their campaigns ahead of the August 9th general election, which will mark the end of the 10-year rule of President Uhuru Kenyatta. Several politicians have expressed their support for the Azimio alliance, while others have poked holes on it, claiming that the idea was fronted by selfish individuals who do not have the interest of the common citizen at heart. The Teachers Service Commission has launched Kenya's first ever live streaming lessons to mitigate the current teachers shortage. The live streamed lessons, through which one teacher will teach multiple classes of various schools simultaneously, will be delivered from 2 principal schools, Alliance Girls High School and Machakos Boys High School, to 10 satellite schools in the selected sub-counties. The technology targeting public schools were unveiled at Alliance Girls High School and aimed to ensure prudent utilization of teachers in the face of existing shortages. TSC Secretary Nancy Macharia said students from 110 sub-counties from 30 counties will access live streaming lessons from teachers of top schools in a bid to ease staff shortage. Kenya is ranked the 30th hungriest nation among 116 countries in the 2021 Global Hunger Index report. The report ranks Kenya at position 87 out of the 116 countries that were considered globally. 23% of Kenyans go to sleep on an empty stomach, according to the report, and more than 650,000 children under 5 years require treatment for malnutrition. Somalia is the worst hit nation overall, with 50% of its citizens facing starvation. They are followed by Burundi, Comoros, South Sudan and Syria, with between 35 to 49.9%. Among the factors that contributed to the high number of people who cannot access proper meals are COVID-19 pandemic, climate change and conflicts. The hearing of the Monica Kimani murder trial continued Wednesday, with prosecution witness Chief Inspector Ishwari Njoki taking the stand to testify. The Chief Inspector, who was then attached to Langata police station and who investigated the shooting incident, testified that Joey shot himself. The investigator dismissed as false claims that Joey was accosted by 3 men armed with a pistol and shot at Royal Park Estate in Langata. The case, which is being heard before Lady Justice Grace Nzioka, continues today, with prosecution planning to present 6 more witnesses before the defense makes its submissions. Now, Kenya has condemned terrorist attacks against civilians that continue to undermine peace efforts in Afghanistan, including the recent deadly attack by Islamic State in Khorasan province in Herat. Speaking during the UN Security Council briefing on the United Nations Assistance Mission in Afghanistan, Kenya's Deputy Permanent Representative to the United Nations in New York, Ambassador Michael Kibono, called on the international community to demand in a unified voice that the Taliban commits to fighting terrorism. He said the international community should ensure that Afghanistan is not a haven for which terrorist groups such as the Islamic State and Al-Qaeda perpetrate their heinous acts of terror not only in Afghanistan but also within the region and beyond. And 2 suspects wanted in the United Kingdom for murder have been arrested in Kenya. The suspects, identified as Mahmoud Siyad Abdi Hakim and Tariq Kennedy Mangal, were arrested by transnational and organized crime detectives with the help of the detectives from the Directorate of Criminal Investigations following intelligence leads. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Download the InDriver app from the App Store or Google Play Store to enjoy a safe, comfortable, and affordable ride around Nairobi.
SpiceFM, Nakuru.
And a few minutes after 7 o'clock, some traffic building up in several parts of the city. Jogo Road is doing the thing this morning. We're also seeing it building up on Gong Road and Uhuru Highway, then going into the city centre. The Thika Superhighway, absolutely jam-packed, bumper to bumper, all the way past the Drift, past Safari Park, and going then towards Roysambo. It also continues on Kiambu Road today. It's a mishmash of traffic, guys, and we're looking at it growing as we go along. Looks like traffic hour is going to be quite something this morning. So what you want to do, keep your wits about, guys, and also be very careful as you're on the streets this morning. Let us know what's happening in your neck of the woods. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
It's
Room.
8 minutes after
the
7.
only
Good
way
morning.
to start
How
your
are
day.
you doing? Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation, the second hour of the show, this Thursday, 27th day of January. We have Justice Thursday's conversation this morning will be with Dr. Moses Maranga. He is the Executive Director of the National Council on the Administration of Justice. He'll tell us all about it at 8 o'clock. Keep it right here for that. CT, today's proverb.
Mchonga mwiko hukimbiza mkono wake. The maker of a wooden spoon saves his hand from fire.
The maker of a wooden spoon saves his hand from fire.
Yes.
Where is fire coming in?
What does the wooden spoon do?
No, but you're making the wooden spoon.
Yeah, but you've made the wooden spoon for future use.
Purpose.
Listen, I disagree with that translation. Mchonga mwiko, we are talking about when you're chongering the mwiko.
Yes.
Not when you're using the mwiko. Others have said mpishi.
No, the maker of the spoon can also be the mpishi.
Yeah, but we're not talking about the mpishi here. We are not saying mpishi. We are saying mchonga mwiko.
Eric has a valid point, but the conclusion of the point Eric has, let him create his own proverb.
No, you are creating your own proverb, City. That's my point.
Actually,
Mchonga mwiko
Eric
is the maker of the wooden spoon.
Actually,
they are harakisha in their hand while they are making the wooden spoon.
There is a small point that you're missing out on, is that this is a proverb. It is not a tale of the 10 cooks.
Yes.
It is
the
a
tale
proverb.
of Mchonga mwiko.
The Mchonga mwiko the mwiko is not chongered so that it can be an artifact.
Surely,
it is purposed for cooking.
Yes.
Yes.
But we are not talking about the use of the mwiko. We are talking about the making of the wooden spoon.
No.
At the point of making, I want to say this because my translation of this is that you do it first. When you're making the wooden spoon, you're doing it first because it has use.
You know.
When you are carving the wooden spoon, you know what you need to use it for. So when you are creating the wooden spoon, you hasten your hand. And even if you just look at it literally, that is what happens. When you're chongaing a wooden spoon,
when you
fast.
consider that this is a proverb, there's nothing remiss about your interpretation.
But there's one about yours.
Well, actually, that's the whole point. That we're having a discussion about the interpretation is actually at the heart of why this is a proverb. Yes. I don't think it would make for a very interesting proverb if everybody agreed and said this is how it should be. No. So, I am glad you brought in that translation, but let me repeat it again. Mchonga mwiko ukimbiza mkono
wake.
Yes, yake. The making of a wooden spoon saves his hand from fire.
Kabisa. Enos Ntungire says, thanks for the great show, guys. Watching you directly from Russia. Good morning. In Russia, it must be cold.
Must be blizzardly cold.
So something interesting is about to happen at the Supreme Court today. Okay? There'll be two cases that will be landmark in the ruling that comes out of the Supreme Court. By the time they're going to the Supreme Court, they've gone through the other stages. High Court, the appellate stage, and then they have actually gone to the apex court. These are two cases on the sharing of matrimonial property. So, the two scenarios. The first case is one between a gentleman called Paul Ogari Mayaka and Mary Nyambura Kangara, also known as Mary Nyambura Paul. Mr. Paul Ogari Mayaka used to work at Tetra Pak, while Ms. Nyambura used to sell polythene bags to farmers in Kawangware and Wakulima markets. They lived together for 33 years, but were never formally married. Mm-hmm. Okay? And by formal marriage here, I mean any marriage that is recognized by law. Not customary, not traditional, not civil. 33 years. And then they fell out. When they fell out, the case went to court. And this is what happened. Is that the two are said to have bought property in 1991, some piece of land in Kawangware, Nairobi. And they decided to have it registered in Nyambura's name because the person who was selling this piece of land to them had said, I am not keen on selling this piece of land to a non-Kikuyu. Mr. Paul Ogari Mayaka is not Kikuyu. Ms. Nyambura is Kikuyu. So therefore, they decided, let's just go ahead and buy the piece of land and register it in Nyambura's name. The title's name read Mary Nyambura Paul. In her efforts to have the exclusive ownership of three-story building generating 258,000 shillings per month, she filed a divorce case in the magistrate court in 2011 and her marriage dissolved.
Which marriage?
See, this particular union
with
Mr. Paul Ogari Mayaka. She told the court that her husband had deserted her. Armed with these divorce orders and aided by policemen, she threw Mr. Ogari out of the property. Mr. Ogari sought the High Court's intervention in 2014 after he was informed that she was in the process of disposing of the property to a third party. He, however, lost the case after Nyambura testified in court that she was married to a man named Kangara Mwangi in 1974, but they had parted ways in the 80s. Nyambura told the court that she never divorced Mwangi, so she was his wife until he died in 2011. Although she had adopted the name Paul, she alleged that it was her last husband's name. Paul ni wengi. You think Paul is Paul Ogari Mayaka? Paul was Paul Kangara Mwangi. She called her sister Teresia Waithera to testify in her favor. Waithera, however, contradicted Nyambura's testimony on where Mwangi was buried because Mwangi died. So the court asked, so where is Mwangi? Mwangi died. Where was he buried? Somewhere in Kiambu. Sister comes. She could not recall whether her sister was married to her alleged late husband. I did not see him paying dowry. Ogari produced documents showing that they bought the property for 100,000 shillings. He had receipts that he was given when he applied for electricity supply and sewer line bearing his name. The judges said they did not believe Nyambura and her sister, noting that the husband was a figment of Nyambura's imagination. This Kangare Mwangi
doesn't exist.
You've created him. This case went to the Court of Appeal. The Court of Appeal was like, there's a case here Mr. Ogari is entitled to a share of this matrimonial property. It started in the High Court. Justice Rosalind Ougo ordered that they split the wealth equally. She factored in that this particular case, it's a different one. It went to the High Court. She took it to the Court of Appeal. Lost. She sought to go to the Supreme Court. She says, I have lived with this man for 33 years, but he was not my husband.
Surely, even her.
No, I was married in the 70s and early 80s to another man. He died.
Did they then ask her, so now you living with this other man for 33 years means what?
It means nothing.
Common law.
It's just that we were hanging out. Okay.
Yeah.
Sawa.
See, there's a Marriage Act. See, the Marriage Act recognizes marriage in different ways.
Yes.
Huyu mtu amelipa mahari? No. Have we gone to any church or any religious organization?
No.
So have we gone to the AG's office? No. He's a housemate.
Roommate.
Can even be a tenant.
Could be.
So, the matter is before the Supreme Court. Case number 1. Case number 2 involves two people again. One is called Joseph Ombogi Ogentoto and his former wife, Martha Bosibori Ogentoto. In this second case, Mr. Ombogi wants the Supreme Court to settle whether Bosibori should get 30% of their matrimonial property and 20% of rental units. Their case started in 2017 in the High Court, where the judge ordered that they split the wealth equally. She factored in that Bosibori had taken care of their children and her contribution to the family's welfare. Upon appeal by Ombogi, Justices Alnasil Visram, Wanjiru Karanja and Justice Martha Koome, then sitting in the Court of Appeal, lowered the amount to be given to Bosibori to 30% of the matrimonial home in Tasia Estate and 20% of the rental properties. Ombogi was not yet done. He moved to the Supreme Court, arguing that the verdict by the Court of Appeal was marred by contradictions. He says the three judges did not settle the old question of what a party to marriage ought to get upon dissolution of marriage. Okay? And this is based on this. Kenya adopted laws from Britain, borrowing from Britain's 125-year-old legislation, the Married Women's Property Act 1882, which gave a judge discretion to share what he or she thought was just to the woman upon dissolution of marriage. The law dictated that upon marriage, a woman ceased to exist as a legal person and all of her possessions went automatically to her husband unless it was specifically spelled out that they were for her own separate use. Britain amended that law in 1970. Kenya continued with the law until 2014, when the Matrimonial Property Act 2013 was enacted. Now, these are two big cases that are before the Supreme Court from today. There's a story that you read there that's covered. It's in the Star.
It's in the Star.
It's about sharing of matrimonial property.
It is about precisely that. But in this case, it is a widow and her in-laws. And this was a case before Justice Mchelule. Justice Mchelule actually went and dissected this matter even further, because what adds spice to this whole story was there was a child that this couple were bringing up. And the parents of the deceased gentleman mentioned this and said there was a child. However, this wasn't their child. And now it gets fairly dramatic here. This child actually had living parents. So what was unclear was whether these parents had actually legally handed this child over to this couple,
or they were just guardians.
Or they were just guardians and they were just educating the child. Okay? Now, it gets even more interesting. Jasmine Chilwell also noted that there were other funds that were due to the deceased. Okay? Mr. Stephen Mwaura Kongo. The insurance and his employer and his workman's benefits.
Right.
Amounting to 4 million. These had been given to the father. So he said the father had already received money. Okay? In fact, quoted here, he says, this money was courtesy of the deceased's generosity. It would be stretching his luck too far, referring to the father-in-law of the lady, to want more from the estate. Meaning, it isn't as though you've received nothing from your son's estate. You have. Now, this woman, at the time of this gentleman death, was his wife.
Okay.
So, what remains is his. But he also added 750,000 shillings will be put aside for the education in an interest-bearing account for the education of this child. Yes. The rest.
To who?
To the woman.
To the woman.
How did... Okay. This insurance and benefits that came from his name, the deceased man is Kongo.
It's called Stephen Mwaura Kongo.
Stephen Mwaura Kongo. Some of it went to his father.
Yes, that happens when you have indicated who that money should go to. Usually,
so there was a will.
There's a will, or even if it was insurance, that next of kin, if you write it is your father, it is him who it goes to. Yes, if you indicate that.
You know, these things, and if you look, I mean, we still haven't settled on how to address dissolution of marriage, because this is the case. This is a whole issue here. Even the case that was, the law that was pushed through by the MP Kaluma the other day on recognition of legal spouse versus other spousal dependents. AKA in the streets, mpango wa kando. It just raises the whole issue in the society. What are we talking about? We are talking about two people coming together at some point in a happy time, and the law sort of recognizing that in happy times you came together. And then in some unhappy times, you part ways. And during that time, there's something that has happened. You have acquired wealth, you have acquired property. When you're parting, how do you divide? How do you share matrimonial property? Several cases now coming from all over, left, right, and center.
It's interesting because now we are looking at the Constitution and what it says. Article 45 of the Constitution states that parties to a marriage are entitled to equal rights at the time of the marriage, during the marriage, and at the dissolution of the marriage. That's what the Constitution says. By law, that is what you should have. What comes about now, however, is that the arguments come in, and oftentimes you'll find that infidelity is used adultery is then used as a reason as to why this individual should be one individual should be shut out from getting this property. Well, this and this happened. I didn't contribute. We also saw that Matheka ruled the other day saying that, even if somebody stays home and takes care of the children, she or he, in rare cases, was doing something that would not have been done had they not been there. So they should also then be privy to this property, that they then have a right to get at least half of it, because they were doing the work in the trenches at home while the other was doing the work in the trenches outside. Now, when you look at this, there are many, many bitter battles that are currently being fought when it comes to spousal property right now. And they're very thin lines that people are dancing on. What can or cannot be done. But the thing I think that here the problem is that a lot of these things are being taken to court on blurry lines in terms of where your relationship stood. The law here is very clear. If you were in a civil union, traditionally or otherwise, is now when you can claim these things. Unfortunately, very many people are caught in the web of living together for a very long period of time, and there is no law of marriage that binds you. So now you want to bring it to court later and say, well, we were living together, we bought said property, we bought said land, but you were not bound in marriage by law. You don't have the right to access this property. And I think that's where those are the blurred lines within which people are dancing today. That very many people have not legalized their unions.
The unions.
That's the problem. The unions have not been legalized. So now when coming to court, like now this one who married somebody else, he died when, was living with another one for 33 years, and then you're saying, okay, so hold on a minute, what can I claim or what can I not claim? Well, you can't claim anything. 33 years, 50 years, 100,000 years. Doesn't matter. No legality of your union, you can't, according to the law. That's why it'll be very interesting to see today what decision is made about this. Because according to the Constitution, which is the law that runs the country, unless you are married legally, you cannot, religiously, customarily, or civilly. You cannot.
And you don't enter into any partnership that can actually show. Because here's the thing.
Yeah, and it was not a business.
If we just break it down and look at it as, okay, so we were jointly participating in the acquisition of this property. We jointly participated in the management of this property. Can we then be considered as partners in the business? Were you
running a business?
Yes.
Then do you have a company?
No.
Then how do you want us to help you?
Those are the questions. Because
how do you
the property is registered in this person's name, but the utilities are registered in the other person's name. Power and water is registered under Paul. The property itself is registered under Nyambura. So
what matters the waters is if you want to treat this as a common property of a married couple.
Yes.
If you look at it as business partners, it becomes a different matter altogether. Because you can participate in creating a business and you have rights when you can actually prove that it was a business that the two of you set up. But under the common law, common cohabitation, which is referred to as marriage or a union that is under the common, that doesn't work.
But you see, it's not, according to the law, that is not recognized as a marriage.
No, it is not.
It isn't. So you can be, if you want to be here saying that because we're living together, we lived together for the last 17 years, and while we were doing this, we bought a car and 1.5 acres of land, and because of the fact that we're living together in the same house, we both have access to it. You do not. And that's what the law is saying. You cannot then call upon those lines of supposed marriage and say, you were not. The law stipulates under 3 circumstances will they say this marriage is a legally recognized marriage in Kenya.
Number one,
civil marriage. You went to the AG. Number 2, religious marriage. You either went to the mosque or you went to church. Number 3, traditional marriage. You went, elders met, something was paid. Under those 3 will the law recognize, and there should and would be evidence of the same. Whether you have documentation at the registrar's office, whether you have documentary at the church or the mosque or any other temple, or whether the witnesses in the customary law and native marriage law and customs saw you people coming to do whatever it is that you did. Apart from that, you can no longer go, open your mouth and say, I lived with CT for 17 years, 33 years, and while we were doing that, we acquired 1.5 cows and 16 acres of land, so therefore it belongs to the both of us. You cannot. And this is my worry, that there are very, very many people today who don't understand that it is not recognized under law. So you cannot come tomorrow then and say, same court should adjudicate over this matter. You have no right.
But here's the thing though. The Court of Appeal had actually acknowledged and recognized this union. This can we stay. The Court of Appeal in their ruling in favor of
which year was it?
Ogeto.
Did they indicate?
Well, when Martha Koome was still in the Court of Appeal.
That was...
According to the Court of Appeal, Nyambura married Ogari in 1986 in a calm-wisted relationship. She, however, waved a deceitful tale in a bid to secure the sole ownership. And they said, what the judges said, the picture that emerges from the evidence is that this Kangara Mwangi, the husband, may have well been a creation of Mary's fertile imagination for the purpose only of defeating her marriage by presumption to Mayaka. If he ever existed in flesh and blood, not a single witness called has ever seen him. We find no difficulty concluding that the judge of the High Court fell into error in holding that Mary was married to Kangara, as such a finding was really based on no evidence. This was a Court of Appeal judge, Patrick Kiage, Fatma Sichale, and Philip Waki.
So Mary, in this case, is trying to stop the court from making her share her property.
Yep.
She is the one now in this case.
She's the one who's now taking the matter to the Court of Appeal.
The matter to court and saying,
to the Supreme Court.
I wasn't actually married to this fella. I shouldn't actually have to share anything with him or his family members.
But then, is it her property?
It is.
Why is it her property?
It's in her name.
It's in her name.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Now.
See, now the tables are turning in this case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's understandable. But as Eric has pointed out, utilities are in whose name?
In Mr. Ogari's name.
Ogari.
Yes. Utilities for which building? Which property?
The one where her name is.
He even produced documents showing that they bought the property at 100,000 shillings. He has the receipts. He had receipts that he was given when he applied for electricity supply and sewer line bearing his name.
You see, there's evidence that he contributed
something.
Yes.
Or he was involved in.
Yes, or he was. That's contribution.
She can argue that he was just a caretaker.
Do you know?
Business partner.
He was a caretaker.
You know?
He decided to register it under his name. That's wrong.
Let me tell you. So you're living with a caretaker for 33 years.
She wouldn't have been the first.
I sublet him a bedroom in my house.
Instead of having to deal with him coming and going every day, and I need him to watch over the property on a daily basis, 24 hours a day. It's not easy for me to give him
my friend.
Accommodation, then I deduct from his salary. I mean...
You mentioned salary. You are going to have to prove that you're paying a salary. You don't mention salary, because the moment his role changes to that of an employee, my friend, it's a different discussion, and then it's incumbent now upon you to provide evidence.
I thought of something, though. You see, now all this time, for the last couple of years, when those who have been in these come-we-stay relationships have been basically tailed by the law, saying, folks, don't come and tell us tomorrow that you need somebody to sort you out, because we're not recognizing it. In the event that the Supreme Court will rule today that these two were actually in a marriage relationship and that now Mary must share this property. All those folks who've been told they can't come to court will rile up, because they'll say, you told us that this relationship was not a marriage, so we couldn't share. Now in this case, because of 1, 2, 3, you're saying it is a marriage and she must give some to this fella? No.
But you know...
Let's take a break and then we continue this conversation, because it has very many angles to this conversation. Very, very many angles, and they talk about our daily lives, okay? How are we dealing with one another as human beings? Must we get to that kind of level where everything has to be written in law in black and white and no grays? 27 minutes to 8.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up.
What makes a man?
I had an advertising job that was toxic. It was difficult. I'm not saying the people were toxic. I don't think anyone is inherently toxic.
Don't ever let someone's perception of you become your reality.
How do we navigate through career, family, and life?
I was an average kid. I wasn't a poor student.
Examining what defines a man.
We derive our identity as men based on external factors, on things that people can be able to see.
A space for men to open their experiences and more. Starting Thursday, 18th November on the Standard Digital YouTube and Facebook page. Hosted by Eric Latiff.
Digital technology is an integral part of any successful business. And staying up to date with the latest in digital technology is key to giving your business a competitive edge. On Saturday, 29th January, I, Olivia Otieno, is taking 00 Direct live and on location for the Digital Technology for Women in Business, a free must-attend forum for women business owners seeking to grow their businesses within the digital space. To attend, simply visit www.spicefm.co.ke to register at no cost. Digital Technology for Women in Business in partnership with Visa. She's next. Empower her.
It's sunny in Nairobi at 15, highs of 26 today. We'll see highs of 27 in Nakuru, where it's 13 and cloudy. Nyeri is 11 and sunny, going to highs of 26 and lows of 10. Sunny conditions at 13 in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 12 today. We're looking at sunny conditions in Mombasa at 25. We'll see highs of 31. Also highs of 31 in Malindi, where it's mostly sunny currently at 26. 19 degrees and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 31 today. Highs of 30 in Kakamega, where it's currently 18 and sunny. Kampala is cloudy at 19, highs of 29. Dar es Salaam, 31 will be the high today, partly sunny at 26. And Johannesburg, mostly cloudy conditions at 16, highs of 25 and lows of 16. It's hazy in Lagos at 24, highs of 34 and lows of 23. Partly cloudy conditions at 22 in Kinshasa, highs of 32 and lows of 21.
Hey, it's getting hot in here. The media has greatly contributed to the moral rot that we experience in this country.
I remember a senior politician telling me, point blank, nobody steals in the field, it's stolen in the granary. So my friend, if you're going to win an election, jipange kwa granary.
I think we are suffering from Stockholm syndrome. Our violator and abuser is also our redeemer in our mind.
The whole political class, the whole political institution is rotten. It is based on ideals that cannot progress our country forward.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, quite heavy on Mombasa Road this morning, and we're looking at that whole circuit. It's looking quite crazy, moving very slowly all the way beyond Sabaki at the interchange coming in from Athi River. Very slow movement out towards the SGR, but you shouldn't be too bad. It's actually moving. It's slow, but it's moving this morning. Southern Bypass in the nooks and crannies, a little bit of traffic there. Coming off Langach Road, absolute mess, bumper to bumper, very slow. You might want to think about using the bypass and going the long route. Ngong Road is also slow this morning. We're looking at Jogo Road coming off of that whole area, and Juja Road as well going further ahead. Oh my goodness, the Thika Superhighway is quite something, coming off Outer Ring. Kiambu Road way past Way. Figure out where Way is. Limuru Road, also quite some traffic today. So it is traffic hour right in the middle of it. It started quite early. Looks like it's going to take us for some time, well into the morning. Be safe, however. And then let us know where you might be stuck, or if you find a good route, let us know that as well. How do you do that? SpiceFM KE on Twitter, text 40127.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life.
Okay, the conversation continues right here, 22 minutes to 8. You know, there are several other cases, landmark cases that have been in court on these particular matters. So, for example, Justice Martha Koome has previously said in court, a man who cohabits with a woman in a property held in the woman's name also needs to prove contributions that he made, because merely lounging in a woman's house while dominating the remote control for the television channels cannot entitle a man to a share of the woman's property. It's just dominating the remote.
Pressing.
You have got to prove that he contributed to that marriage.
At least
separately, Justice Patrick Kiage. Our new constitutional dispensation is not safe haven for spouses who will not pull their weight. It cannot be an avenue to early riches by men who would rather reap from the rich women, or women who see in moneyed men and adieu to property. You just come into this thing, you're not contributing, you're just sitting there, you get a share of the wealth. Hapana. Separately, Justice George Odunga. While the Act does not expressly recognize post-nuptial agreements, it's my view that this does not mean that such agreements are not enforceable. Being contractual in nature, the general law of contract applies and they are enforceable just like any other contract. Therefore, they are subject to the court's scrutiny if allegations of fraud, coercion, or is manifestly unjust are pleaded by a party to the agreement. This particular one by Justice George Odunga was very interesting. It was a case that was taken to court by a man codenamed D&K and his wife KM. D&K married KM on the 18th of August 1995. Their marriage was dissolved by court in 2019. After their marriage ended, D&K moved to court claiming that the agreement that they had signed to share their wealth was out of coercion. Although he admitted signing this document, he argued that he was not in his right state of mind, adding that allowing his ex-wife to have 12 acres while he remains with only 3 was unfair. According to him, the property was his inheritance. KM, on the other hand, argued that he was not forced or nagged to sign the deal. Not forced. So, the Justice Odunga said we need to recognize these post-nuptial agreements. Another case, Justice Teresia Matheka added to the list of contributions by finding that judicial officers should factor in the 9 months that a woman carries a baby in her womb while presiding over disputes on distribution of matrimonial property. According to the judge, it's unfair to find housewives contributed less or nothing. Justice Matheka has pointed out that society today has been able to monetize carrying a baby through a surrogate, adding that taking care of children is today a full-time job. So Justice Matheka has previously said that a housewife has also contributed to the acquisition of any matrimonial property, and therefore that should also be considered. Another different case has been before Justices Mohamed Wasame, Hannah Okwengu, and Sankale Olekantai in a case between Edward Nganga and Mary Njoki. And the judges held that marriage per se is not a ground for sharing property acquired during marriage equally. This 50-50. Because we were married, we acquired property, therefore we are entitled to 50-50 of this property?
Yes.
Not necessarily. This is in the case of 2 professional people who were married. Here was the case. Njoki wanted their wealth split 50-50, and the High Court had agreed with her. She argued that as a wife, she had contributed to the wealth as much as her husband Nganga had. Nganga, however, had argued that they had no children and that Njoki had acquired her own property, which he was not interested in. He was of the view that the court should allow them to part ways without dividing what each has. You have acquired X, keep. I have acquired Y, I should keep. It is clear beyond doubt that the respondent cannot assert that she was taking care of children and other family issues. Admittedly, both parties were top professionals who pursued their personal and professional interests separately. That's a court of appeal that ruled in December last year. So all these things are in court. They're all confusing. What have the courts said about sharing of matrimonial property?
It seems that on several different rulings or several different cases, there have been different rulings. So if there was one ruling and you went with it, right? Then somebody gives another ruling. Do you go with that one? No. Somebody goes with another one. Do you go with that one? Because essentially these rulings are saying different things. You are saying, for example, look at the Constitution. Along the 3 lines within which you are married, you are sharing 50-50, right? There's another case that has come up. 2 professionals working, they are married. The ruling is that just because you're married doesn't necessarily mean that you have to share this thing 50-50. The Constitution says something different. Then you come, another one says, one is working at home, taking care of the children. Another one is outside. By virtue of the fact that this one is at home taking care of the children,
she's also entitled
has granted this one the opportunity to go out and get. So you're both doing an equal job. Gives you the opportunity.
But Justice Kome and Justice Kiage have said, simply because you're sitting at home does not necessarily mean that you get a share of this. So what are the courts saying?
No, the courts are actually opening us up to the extremely diversified perspectives on this matter. You know, my view on this has always been the same. That every time you hear something going to the courts, sit back and learn. It's an opportunity for you to understand, especially when there's a ruling. You then get to understand how the law interprets a situation. What we've discussed here, 3 different cases. 3. Someone has lived with another person in a heterosexual relationship, but they have not ensured.
They have not formalized it in any way.
No, they haven't.
Right.
That's one case. You have a case where, as you say, there are 2 professionals. Okay? Each one married.
Yes.
Not just living together.
Married formally.
Formally, yes. But somehow the process of living together, they acquired properties separately.
Yes.
Okay? Completely different case.
Yes.
Then you have a situation where there's a lady who is staying at home. She is married, she's looking after children. And there's the issue of that also is a contribution. The process of bearing the child, looking after the children, that's a contribution.
Yes.
Then somebody says, okay, just because you have been at home doesn't mean this. For me,
another one where a couple comes together and they decide, you know what, we've seen what's happening in all these other cases, and let's actually stay ahead of the game. Let's sign an agreement that in the event we ever part ways, this is how we are going to share property. They part ways. Man goes to contest this agreement in court and says, at that point, I was coerced.
They made me sign. I wasn't aware of what I was doing.
I was confused. I was not in my right state of mind.
So how
confused by love.
How do we then? How then do we actually prove that when he's now in court, he's in his right state of mind? You see, when these things are taken to court, all that we keep dealing with here is a greater understanding of the interpretation of the laws that pertain to this particular subject. Because all these cases that we're presenting are different in one way or the other. It's about marriage, the Marriage Act, but they are different cases. And I'm sure with the passage of time, we'll get even others.
I think it just comes back again to what is it saying about our evolving society?
Yes.
Because we have all these different dimensions. At one point when people are coming together, they're coming together for various reasons. One, there's a societal expectation that, hey, when are you bringing somebody home? There's that pressure. So you bring somebody home. You actually even go ahead and get married. Or there's a natural biological desire to couple. So you meet somebody, you like somebody, you think this is love, you tell yourself you've fallen in love, you also tell them you're in love with them, they tell you the same, you move in together, you live together. At some point, shelf life, used before, sell by date, expiry. That whole love story ends.
Love gone.
Love gone.
Now, the real issues begin.
Yes. And I'm not sure there's any piece of legislation that can actually address
and cover every single situation in its entirety and say that we're going to have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed here, and then you make this ruling and take it all into consideration. It might be difficult to do that because there's several circumstances under which these things play out. Who would have thought somebody would live with somebody for 33 years, for example, and then in the event where she's asked to share her property, she's told, hold on a minute.
Me?
But there's the question, the things that people who live under the same roof and probably share a bedroom discuss and agree on, who knows the details except those two?
Two of them.
Who?
Two of them.
Who can even claim to understand that they know? When people meet, go through a period of courtship, that is if they do that and they decide they want to live together, who knows what it is that those two people discuss? And even when they have problems, who really knows what their problems are?
Even the two of them may not even really know. Yes. Did you hear this guy saying that he was coerced?
Yeah.
And he was there.
There are very many cases. Yeah. You know, as it naturally happens in society, we don't discuss these nitty-gritties of, okay, yeah, we are in love. So apart from that question, so what are we? that you know comes from which side.
Why are you pointing at me? I don't understand.
So what are we? So what is this? So where are we heading? Apart from that question, that's it. The next so we guy comes home and says, my buddies, we are buying a piece of land and chama. The lady comes and says, with our chama, we are doing this and the other. There's no conversation of, is that ours or is that yours? Let's be very clear. Is it ours or is it yours? So if it's yours, what happens should you die? Does it go then to your father or does it come to me? All those things, we never discuss them.
No, we don't. The thing that I have noticed in all the cases, which to me now is a commonality, is that when people part ways, does the court understand the state of mind of people who have disagreed and what they're likely to say about their relationship simply because they've disagreed? Because there's usually... Angst is a really gentle word in this situation.
Oh, yeah.
Usually, people want to get back at each other. So the things they will say, there'll be truth to it, but it'll be dramatized and hyped. When there's property involved, everyone wants to get the best out of that situation. Or some people want to get the best more than the others. Remember, we are discussing situations where that amicable relationship has come to an end. You have two warring factions. So what do you think is going to happen? How do you think they're going to present their case?
Yeah.
They are going to present the case which in their mind benefits them the most. Because usually when relationships end, there's this great need to punish each other. Or one party feels, you will see.
All the wrong you did to me.
Yes, and the other one also says, I will also give you the gift of sight. So all of a sudden, you are never really sure what the problem initially was, because the noise that follows before even that departure, it usually takes center stage.
Should we get to a point where people, as they get married, they also set up something else, set up a vehicle that is called, this is a property ownership vehicle, where it's clear that property is owned not by you two, but by this other held in trust. So at the point of division, there's nothing like, this one, it's CT, this company is CT who's a shareholder and not the wife. This one, it is the wife who is a shareholder in this other company. This piece of land is actually registered in so-and-so's name. Because it will raise those issues. Whose name is this property?
Yes. But then, before that property was registered in that person's name, what else took place? You see...
Yes. Was the other partner in this relationship aware?
And what role did they play in the acquisition, if any? You see... Again, it goes back to what I was saying earlier on about the details of relationships that we are really not ever really privy to. And how it is that people come to the understanding that this property will be in so-and-so's name as opposed to so-and-so's name. You really don't.
That's why I'm proposing that for it to be clear, just like today, if you are a shareholder in a certain company, right? Your shares are clear. You own X number of shares, which is X percentage, which entitles you to this, and the other.
Yes.
It is clear. And if that issue ever goes to court, we just look at, so according to the memorandum and articles of association, this is what this company is, and these are the shareholders, and this is what they own. It's very clear. This other thing of whether you contributed, whether you didn't, it now does not. And even the roles, if you are an executive director, are you getting an extra? If you are a non-executive?
I don't know. It just seems to really almost mechanize the softer side of life.
That's not the softer side of life. Softer side of life is where you're having a good time.
No, but
property now is the hard side of life.
Right. But then you see the thing is that it just seems now that it almost takes away from the humanity of a relationship that you had with another individual.
Yes.
Right? So that everything upon which you built this thing just seems to fly out the window when we're dealing with money and property. Because that's it. What else are we looking at? It's money and property.
It's all
We're not
about-
even talking about custody of children or anything like that. No. This thing we're talking about now.
It's a reality of our times.
And that's what I'm saying. That has society evolved? I don't know if it's such a thing as negative evolution, right? To a place whereby that trumps this need to have trumps everything else. That the money and the acquisition trumps everything else. That this softer, more humanist side of things kind of disappears from, your thinking completely. That we will go to court. We will go to the ends of the earth to make sure that this thing that I've been able to acquire remains mine. It doesn't matter how I saw you before. It doesn't matter that I told you that you're the only star in my galaxy. Here now, when it comes to this money and this property, I can even kill you.
Yeah, but remember, when other mechanisms for resolving societal issues collapse or then they don't have as much weight, because these are matters that it was assumed could be sorted out in the community.
Indeed, community.
People, you disagree with your spouse, partner, you went back to and to discuss this is a problem.
Yep.
And they sort it out for you and they call people to
sit
down, right?
People don't do that anymore. You go to court.
So this is it. This is what I'm saying. Have we seen such a deterioration of society and the community walls that were previously built to help to sort out some of these things, that we go to the place whereby we had initially said it's going to be left for, other things?
Yes, that's what we have seen.
That's what we've said. Society has deteriorated to the point whereby your human-to-human interaction can no longer be sorted by just the humans.
Actually,
there has to be the structure.
It's more
of
than
the
that.
law
I
to
think
sort it out.
it's because we have deliberately sought to break down that structure. When we started talking about ownership and sharing of matrimonial property, you see, in those traditional structures, there was no issue of ownership and sharing of matrimonial property.
Yeah, because there's nowhere you're going.
It was very clear that you get married, you move from your home to your husband's home. The man brings dowry to your home. That's it. You have moved. If when you're there, you are a beneficiary of this property. The husband dies, you inherit, you and your children, your sons. The daughters will get married, right? In the event of divorce, you go back home standing the way you are, they return the cows. That's it. Now we have moved from that and said, no. I have been here for all these years. If it ends, we have to factor in. I mean, you can't just take me back to my father's homes
I was here with you
just
all this time in the trenches.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you see, it's an evolutionary process that is inevitable. It's a question of understanding it, because on the one hand, we could actually be saying we've commercialized relationships, where you want to quantify things. Actually, sometimes you must.
Or we're getting into the place whereby, look, as it would be, that there are women who are saying, I'm not going to get married, but I want to have children. I'm not going to get married, but then I want to also inherit. I don't want to get into this legally binding relationship with you. I want to be able to live my own life. 50 years ago, even as early as 50 years ago, are those conversations that were being had in community?
Nope.
No.
There was nothing
it was not
like,
there.
Atikam we stay.
What? No. And then when you're done, you go. When you're tired, you finish. I'm not doing this thing again. You can go. No, it never used to be that you get married for life. What are you talking about? The goats that they brought when you were getting married, we have already eaten it. So you
sort yourself out.
You will not leave, that kind of thing. So here we are having totally different conversations that people who initiated these communal relationships, if they heard about them, they would turn over in their graves, because it's astonishing, right?
Yep.
But here we are talking about, let the law then be the one to even figure it out. This going to elders to figure it out. No. The structure of the law now has replaced what community elders would previously have done. The reality that we are living with in our times today does not even begin to mirror what was happening 50 years ago.
And even then, those wazers would actually sit down and look at circumstances and say, all right, so this particular case, we accept that this woman can go back to her folks, but she'll be entitled to. You will
still provide for
you
one,
will
two,
provide for this, and the other. You will give her a piece of land. You will give her some property that she will get some property. The Wazairs would sit and determine that. Now we're saying no. It has to be clear, black and white. It has to be there.
We're even saying that
Eric,
before you
remember
even get married, let's have an agreement.
I
so
think
that
we've reached that hour, haven't we?
We've reached that hour. Keep it right here for more. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
The Spice FM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
Bodies that were retrieved from the river Yala kicked off yesterday with Chief Government Pathologist Johansen Odor leading the exercise. The process is expected to continue today, with affected families flocking the Yala Hospital morgue to submit their DNA samples for matching in identifying their kin's bodies. Human rights defenders who were present called on the government to consider setting up a DNA repository to ease the identification of bodies in instances where relatives are unable to travel for the exercise. The activist also sent in an independent pathologist to oversee the post-mortem exercise. According to the families, the autopsy will be concluded in 2 days, but they might have to wait for 2 weeks for consolidation and subsequent matching of the submitted DNA samples to the bodies. 2 people are nursing gunshot wounds while 4 others escaped death by a whisker after the vehicle they were traveling in was ambushed by suspected Al-Shabaab militants at Lango La Simba area, Lamu County yesterday evening. The 6 persons who were part of a court procession were returning from a mobile court in Kipini when the militants ambushed them at around 5 p.m. The suspected militants are also said to have opened fire on 2 different vehicles belonging to construction company Hechiang prior to ambushing the court official's vehicle. Both vehicles were en route to Gamba from Witu. At least 13% of serving police officers are suffering from some form of stress-related mental illness. This is according to the National Police Service Commission. Officers largely drawn from the administration police are admitted to hospital with mental illness, even as their commanders were taken through a course to identify and humanely deal with the stressed officers. With the grim statistics on mental health casting a cloud over the police service, Deputy Inspector General in charge of administration police Nugabo led regional, county and section commanders of the administration police from across the country in a sensitization workshop held at the Chirom Hospital Group targeting mental wellness within the service.
Mental issues within the police is not a disciplinary issue, it's not a HR issue. It's a sickness which can be treated. And we have instructed our commanders, and the Inspector General has given a clear guidance that any officer who is sick or who has some mental issues, he or she will be able to be brought to these facilities.
National Police Service Commission Chief Executive Officer Joseph Onyango said that 13% of police officers in the country are suffering from some form of mental illness. Keroche Brewery's CEO Tamitha Karanja has officially joined Deputy President William Ruto's UDA in a quest for the Nakuru senatorial seat in the August 9th general election. The CEO was introduced during a joint rally with the Mali National Congress leader Musalia Mudavadi and his Fort Kenya counterpart Moses Wetangula at the ASK showground in Nakuru. Tabitha said that she had listened to Ruto's ideology and talked to her supporters who urged her to join UDA. Tabitha said that she had talked to her supporters who urged her to join UDA, and today the DP takes his campaign to Kiambu County. He is set to begin his tour by visiting Uthiru Gishagi Kabete constituency at 10 a.m, then head to Kino Kikuyu constituency at 11 a.m, where he will commission Mamangina Primary, HGM Secondary and Kino Shopping Center. The DP will then head to Wangige Town, Kabete constituency at 4 p.m, then finally conclude his tour in Kikuyu Town, Kikuyu constituency at 5 p.m. Now, after storming out of Musalia Mudavadi's coronation at the Bomas of Kenya, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka and businessman Jimmy Wanjigi held a consultative meeting in what they say will result in a major announcement. Though they declined to address journalists, Wanjigi stated that a major pact was in the offing. Kalonzo will from today ring-fence his support base with a 3-day campaign tour of the 3 Ukambani counties. He will be accompanied by Wanjigi, who is also eyeing the country's top seat in an address at the Kitui Stadium.
We have had a good discussion, and now we're going to our various duties. I think watch our steps, and you'll be seeing them now more often than you have seen.
The Office of the Data Protection Commissioner has called on the data processors and controllers to safeguard and embrace a culture of privacy while handling data to ensure compliance to legal provisions. ODPC Director General Immaculate Kasait, who spoke during a virtual forum, said data controllers must look into ways of ensuring their systems and processes are in place and secure to ensure data protection. She emphasized the need for data handlers to understand the type of data they are collecting, processing, releasing, and how it is stored. And Russia has rejected the prospect of U.S. sanctions against President Vladimir Putin, one of the several proposed responses if Russian forces were to invade neighboring Ukraine. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that such sanctions would not be politically painful but would be destructive. U.S. President Joe Biden Tuesday warned of severe and enormous consequences for Putin, including personal sanctions against Putin himself if the Russian leader mobilizes the estimated 127,000 troops who stand by to strike along the Ukrainian border. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
All right, this is where we are in the middle of it this morning in many parts of the city. Gong Road is actually looking very, very busy today. We're looking at some of that coming off of Raila Odinga Way, which of course is coming off Langata Road, which is an absolute mess all the way from the Wilson Airport, even beyond that through to the roundabouts at T-Mall. So that continues crazily. We're looking at Uhuru Highway, which is quite something as well, coming off Jogo Road, which is quite messy from the very beginning of the morning. And Thika Super Highway, of course, that still continues, as does Kiambu Road. Kiambu Road specifically today is very, very, very busy. Limuru Road also continues coming out of Westlands. That's quite something. Use the Red Hill Link Road. There's an option for you. Outer Ring is quite messy as you then get out towards the junction of Juja Road, which also then spills over into the city. So we are in traffic hour. Let's get through without too much of a scratch, shall we? And then let's talk about it where you might be stuck this morning. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Tuning into Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, from wherever you are. We know there are people who are listening to this show on radio, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Malindi, and Nyeri. And there are those who are following the live stream on Facebook, others on YouTube, from as far as Russia and even in the country. And now there are people who are tuned into the conversation on KTN Home. A very good morning to everybody. Welcome. We have a guest in the studio. Today is Justice Thursdays. But before we introduce the guest, let's hear the day's proverb. City.
Mchonga mwiko ukimbiza mkono wake. Translation, the maker of a wooden spoon saves his hand from fire.
Mchonga mwiko hukimbiza mkono wake.
Yes, and this proverb has done what proverbs are supposed to do. It has elicited a discussion. Because Eric believes, correctly, that it is the user of the spoon who might kimbiza their hand because they're the ones who are actually near the fire.
And you believe correctly?
Oh, I believe precisely what I've just said.
My translation of this is that the person who is carving out the wooden spoon, the mwiko, cooking spoon, is making haste. Not because they're avoiding fire, because there's no fire involved at this particular stage, but because they need it to be used.
Okay. Good. Nice interpretation.
Our guest is Dr. Moses Maranga. Dr. Maranga is the Executive Director of the National Council on Administration of Justice, NCAJ. It's a council with a long name, but he'll tell us all about it shortly. Good morning, Dr. Maranga.
Good morning.
Good to have you in the Situation Room. Karibu sana.
Asante.
We want to talk about justice today, being Justice Thursdays. We decided that we want to be having these conversations so we can open up conversations about access to justice. It's one of the big things in the country, accessing justice, and knowing that if you go to any court in the country, this is the process. This is how you get in. This is how you get your justice. This is how you secure justice. If you're unhappy, this is how you seek redress and all that. Now, there's a National Council on the Administration of Justice. Tell us about it. Is it a legal entity? Is it a chama? Is it an association? Or a workers' union?
Thank you. Maybe before I talk about NCAJ, I'd allow me to take this opportunity to thank SpiceFM. This is a rare opportunity to talk to Kenyans, to other partners all over the world about administration of justice. And we are really grateful as NCAJ for this opportunity. Again, allow me to thank the Honorable Chief Justice, Martha Koome. When she came into the judiciary, she decided that justice has to go close to Mwananchi, and this led to the conceptualization of the whole idea of Justice Thursdays. So this is a good opportunity for us. Having said that, NCAJ stands for a National Council on the Administration of Justice. It's an incorporated body which was established in 2011. This is in JSC Act of 2011. So today we are celebrating 10 years of service. It has been quite a good journey. Of course, with some challenges here and there. We have learned lessons. And now we are ready to go to the next decade between 2022-2032 in terms of service delivery to Kenyans. The justice sector, or the NCAJ, which serves the administration of justice of justice in the sector, comprises of state and non-state actors. The state actors are the government institutions that handle matters to do with justice. And I want to give a typical example. If you are arrested today, not arrested, if you commit a crime today, I know you are a good gentleman, you will not commit crime.
No, hardly.
Alex here.
He's talking about Eric.
This guy.
Eric is a law-abiding citizen.
Of course he is. Yes. All right, please continue.
Let me use myself as an example.
No, just carry on with Eric. There are those who believe he's a law-abiding citizen. Let's not disappoint them. Please continue with his example. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, if a crime is committed, definitely the aggrieved person or the victim will go and report to the police station, and that will be the first point of contact with one of the key institutions of the justice sector, the police. The police will then be obliged to investigate the issue. They will investigate and hopefully arrest the person. If the person is arrested, he will be handed over to court, and then the prosecution will begin. So the prosecution office, the office of the director of prosecution, will take over and prosecute the case. Once the case goes to court, the third institution comes in, the judiciary. The issue will be heard, and at the end of the day, there will be either a conviction or an acquittal, assuming it's a criminal matter. And eventually the person goes to prison. Those are 4 key justice sector institutions. Before that, there will be other players, non-state actors. The LSK will be there to represent the accused, and including other persons with various interests. So that gives the context why, if there is a weak link at one point in time, either at the point of apprehension of the criminal, the point of prosecution, and the point of conviction by the court, then there will be a problem. And that is what brought the whole idea about the need for working as a team, the need for having National Council on Administration of Justice. And that is where we are now, because the idea is to have efficiency. Efficiency means, let me interpret loosely and say, having no blame game. Sijui ni huyu hajafanya huyu, ni huyu hajafanya hii. It's in an ideal situation, things should be seamless, no weak link. And at the end of the day, the person who is supposed to benefit is the Kenyan. It's the Wajiko. And our prayer and our aspiration is that Wajiko should have memorable and positive experience having passed through the system.
The entire system.
Hatutaki ile watu wanasema, nilienda huko kuko hivi, kuko kubaya. That's what the justice sector aspires to be, a premier institution that serves the public in the entire justice sector. They have memorable experience and they are able to get justice at the end of the day.
How are you able to measure the impact of what you do? How do you know if, since the establishment of the NCAJ, there's actually been some improvement in the experience that court users have with the justice sector players?
There are many ways, and we have used them. I want to start with one which has been more rigorous, which is more of undertaking a survey. We go around the country, we interview the court users. Court users is anybody who interacts with the court, whether you are afraid, you are escorting a person, or you are coming for any other business in the court. We interview them and get feedback. And we are even able to go ahead and quantify and say they are satisfied to say 60%. And we gather useful lessons, the challenges, and we use them now to try and build a better future. That's one of the ways. Secondly, and most importantly, there are those policies that the council, the NCAJ council, makes. You see, one of their key functions is to make policy, legal, and administrative, to spearhead administrative reforms in the NCAJ. So we have produced quite a mouthful of policy documents, capturing legal reforms, administrative reforms, and the same have been disseminated to the grassroots. And we believe, since at the grassroots, the council is represented, we believe there is positive impact to the Wajiko at the grassroots level. Allow me to mention something. I know it's about NCAJ, and what maybe the Wajiko would like to hear is this a thing about Nairobi, sitting in Nairobi and coordinating. It's about Nairobi, but most importantly, it's about grassroots. NCAJ has a replica at grassroots level by a body called Court User Committee. The Court User Committees are spread across the country. Currently, we have 42 county CUCs. We have 127 sub-county CUC. That is where we have magistrate courts. And those are the platforms that brings the OCAs, the children officer at the grassroots, the prosecutor at the grassroots, among other players, to come and discuss issues to do with justice. And from that forum is when the council at the top would receive feedback from the grassroots, and it's the same forum the decisions by the council would trickle down for implementation at the grassroots.
Okay. Before the establishment of all of this and now, I guess experiences then are able to show. I assume that then you came engaged with the system before this new system where that was going to guarantee efficiency. How have you been able to see that things have changed? What are some things that you've said or that you've seen along the lines that maybe were deficient previously and are now efficient? What are some experiences that you've been told of that you can be clear have said, okay, this is working a lot better. People are a lot more satisfied with their experience. People now are willing to engage with the judicial system a lot more because the experience has been enhanced.
Thank you for that question. In 2013, the entire system, justice system, had close to 800,000 clients who had come to request their services, and their services were being handled at court level by various actors. These clients, in terms of services, is what we say they had disputes. Disputes were taken to court by police, by other persons, and this is what was there that time. It was a challenge because as a Kenyan, your case would take slightly over 3, 4, 5 years before it was concluded. And that was not a good situation, and that is why the actors sat together and decided we may need to reduce the time taken to serve Kenyans. The numbers I have given are domiciled at court, but they are not necessarily court number. All those players come to court, and those players have a role to play in terms of those cases being resolved. So that is where the conversation began. That's the experience which was there. Not really a good one, but as at now, I can authoritatively say, with that collaboration, the time taken to handle disputes by Kenyans has greatly reduced to an average of between 1 and 2 years. But we are not yet there because by international standards, ideally no case should go beyond 1 year. Of course, there is general acceptance that everything has a cycle and we need to resolve our disputes within 1 year. That's where we want to go in terms of the future. Those challenges have been there, but now we want to address them.
When I look at the composition of this organization that you head, what informed that composition?
It's very simple. It was deliberate. And the first criteria is who plays a key role in terms of administration of justice. If you look at the Act envisaged 16 persons to be part of NCAJ, starting with the chairperson, the Chief Justice, there is ODPP, there is a Commissioner of Prison, Inspector General, among those people. Those are the people with the highest threshold in terms of administration of justice. They represent institutions that handle matters to do with justice. Beyond that, the other critical players, and NCAJ has been granted the authority to co-opt. Right now, there are 40 players, including representatives of business communities, civil society organization, development partners. We have broadened because we realized it may not be about government institutions only, but it's beyond government institutions. Sometimes it's you, Muga, who has a big role to play in terms of yourself accessing justice. If you don't visit a police station to report and something has happened to you, maybe you have made a mistake. If you are summoned to appear in a court, you don't appear. What will the court do? The court will adjourn and will say the witness was not available, all those manner of things. So it's a collective responsibility where all of us are expected to play the role. So that was the conceptualization, starting from 16, realizing the gap, co-opting more members to reach the current number of 40.
I need to ask, does it have the military?
Currently, the Ministry of Defense is there.
Okay. Civil society?
There.
Religious organizations?
There.
Lawyers.
Lawyers are everywhere. You cannot miss them. Do you have organizations that look after the welfare of children?
Exactly. They are there. We have equality now as part of the council. We have FIDA. They are seated at the council. And they are able to articulate and discuss with state actors about the issues to do with children. Where we are sitting, we are considering the broader picture of access to justice for the vulnerable groups. If you go to our constitution and you try to find the meaning of vulnerable, there are so many, including children, marginalized women, name them. So that's where the focus is. And that is why, in terms of the representation, we have those groups representing the vulnerable groups. If you look at our strategic aspiration as NCAJ, I know this is technical, but usually in an office, in a government office, there is a strategic plan. And a strategic plan has key areas of focus. At NCAJ, we have one key area of focus, which is access to justice for the vulnerable, with a lot of emphasis on children issues. If you look at the strategic plan, even for other organizations like Judiciary and among other institutions, the issue of vulnerable groups, very key. So those are the things that we are looking at NCAJ. Previously, the focus was on all groups as a whole, criminal justice sector reforms, but we realize there are some aspects which require some special attention. There are some groups which require some special attention, and that's the conceptualization of having now those specific groups and their representatives in the council.
As the council, then, if you look at and find there are several areas of concern or weaknesses, say, for example, public trust with the police service, and that reduces the chances that somebody who is aggrieved will actually go to report to a police station, which means that they will not go and seek justice and they'll not get into the system of this seeking justice. What do you do to address that? Because you see, as you said, that's like the first point of call of going to the police service, the law enforcement agency, and say, I feel aggrieved and I'd like to seek justice. What do you do to address such issues as, yes, there's a confidence in the judiciary, there's a confidence in the ODPP, there's confidence in the investigative agencies and law enforcement agencies like the police?
Thank you. Actually, one of the ways, it's like what is happening now, media outreach. I believe at the end of this conversation, I'll have said something, and a Kenyan out there will have come to know that there exists NCAJ, and there exist these institutions, and there exists a place where you can go and air your views. But let me talk about the intervention at the grassroots level. I mentioned about Court Users Committee comprising all those actors at the grassroots. Today, or any other Thursday, the Court Users Committees are expected to have outreach programs. They will go, they will have public barazas, they will educate wananchi, they will tell them about procedures on accessing court services, police services, among other issues. As at now, we have really emphasized about those outreach programs at Mashinani as our key platform of reaching out to Mwananchi. I can't authoritatively say that we are like at 100%, but the beauty of it is that we have taken the bull by its horns, and that's an area we want to make progress on. More outreach programs so that Kenyans can know in case they are aggrieved on a given issue regarding justice, they can visit this office and other offices. Again, all justice sector offices, they have what I may term as customer care desks or personnel, judiciary, ODPP, all the institutions. Sometimes the issue may be about a specific institution which needs to be addressed at that institutional level. So that is in place, and there are those redress mechanisms at institutional level. Beyond now, what I have talked about
at the council level,
at CUC level, and at council at the top.
Okay. Time for us to take a break. It's 8:30. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room. It's Justice Thursdays. Our guest today is Dr. Moses Maranga. He's the Executive Director at the National Council on the Administration of Justice. We are talking about what this council does, bringing together all justice sector actors to coordinate them so there's efficient delivery of justice. We'll be back shortly. Good morning.
This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
Have you seen them? Am I live?
Yes, it's a very nice outfit, I must say. Good
Thank
job.
you. Asante sana.
The compliment is well received.
Good morning and thank you. Everyone was asking me what channel is SpiceFM.
96.7. Tell them that, right?
Yes, now they know.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have
you.
you.
What a beautiful studio, my friend.
I've been to other radio stations, but I've never seen anything like this.
Thank you, and it's very nice to be in a modern studio. Absolutely brilliant.
And I have to say, it's a very cool ambiance here in your radio room. Just for our listeners, I think it is below zero in this room here. Very Swiss temperatures.
Sunny conditions in Nairobi, highs of 26 and lows of 15 today. It's sunny at 15 in Nakuru, highs of 25 and lows of 13. 12 will be the low in Nyeri, where it's sunny at 14, going to highs of 26. 16 degrees and mostly sunny in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 12 today. In Mombasa, 27 and sunny, highs of 31 and lows of 24. 31 will also be the high in Malindi, where it's cloudy at 27. It'll come down to lows of 25. Kisumu is sunny at 22, highs of 31 and lows of 19. And in Kakamega, 23 with highs of 31 and lows of 16. It's sunny at 21 in Kampala, highs of 29 and lows of 18, while in Dar es Salaam it's raining now at 26, highs of 31 today. Mostly cloudy conditions at 18 in Joburg, highs of 26 and lows of 17, and a foggy morning in Lagos at 24, highs of 34 and lows of 23. It's mostly cloudy at 22 in Kinshasa, highs of 32 and lows of 21.
There are so many people peddling what
is false and that it bears remarkable resemblance to what is true.
Politicians have their agenda, and their agenda is to use every opportunity to sell that agenda and to loot this nation.
I have seen major strides that are done in this country when we talk to each other as against talking at each other.
We start getting back into the tribal cocoons which were put to us by the colonial powers. You know, they gave us physical freedom but not mental freedom. We're still mentally colonized today into these cocoons of tribe.
Now, if you live in an area where it's difficult to find a dog,
He's a goat. I kid you not.
In which part of this country is it difficult to find a dog? So that you resort.
All right, crazy traffic on Mombasa Road this morning, and we're looking at that whole Gateway Mall, Syokimau area, having some real problems with the construction of the road, but also then just terrible road situation that's causing quite some traffic this morning. Gateway and then out towards the SGR, very, very slow movement this morning. We're also looking at industrial area, and that's tightened up quite some. Uhuru Highway then getting into the CBD. CBD is where all the action is this morning, coming off from Gong Road as well. As the thicker super highway, that continues quite thick there as well, coming off Kiambu Road. And Limuru Road still continues. Usual suspects this morning. Nothing too terrible, but it's moving slowly. Let's talk, guys. Text on 40127. Tweet SpiceFMK.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.9.
This is Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room, live with you this morning on KTN Home, on Spice FM, and online, YouTube and Facebook. Eric Latiff, CT Muga Ndu Okoh, and our guest is Dr. Moses Maranga, the Executive Director of the National Council on the Administration of Justice.
Okay, I want to take you back to a question I'd asked earlier, to which you had responded by telling us that the number that you have in your committee is now 40. Okay? Now, it represents a lovely, diversified cross-section of the community. What I'm interested in knowing was 40 is a large number. I was envisioning a room with 40 people talking.
Like 40 board members.
Yes, and I'm thinking, hey.
It's an AGM.
Yes, that is an AGM. Or it's a rally. Yes. How do you go about your business when you have this number? And how do you ensure that that business is conducted in a way that the deliberations have the desired outcome of ensuring that the Mwananchi actually benefits?
Thank you. When you talk of a large number, I think to me it's very positive because it's about representation. And sometimes if you don't have that sizable number, there are chances that someone would feel not well represented. Remember, our mandate as NCAJ, it's about collaboration and that cohesive existence for delivery of justice. So as at now, we really like those numbers and we are moving on well. But most importantly, how we operate is this way. At the top, we have the council. Below the council is a technical teams drawn from various agencies that sieves out issues before they are deliberated by the council. Below there are task forces or committees that handle distinct issues. We have a committee on criminal justice sector reforms. It's headed by Justice Genye. We have a committee on children matters. We have a committee on court users committee. So the agenda of administration of justice is spearheaded by committees with all the membership of those institutions. They sieve out issues, and issues are then taken up to the larger committee or the council. But before those issues are taken there is the technical committee. And that technical committee, it's a committee we really interact with as an office where I serve, because that is where we take all our board papers. Board papers, we synthesize information, and we realize that this requires some intervention by the council. So by the time the council is meeting, everything is almost or fully synthesized. And most of the times, they agree to a good extent about the report from the technical committee coming down from those other specific committees, and they're able now to move the agenda of the council in a quicker manner. Once the council makes the decisions, as a secretariat or as NCAJ now, us as the technical people, we pick, isolate recommendations, and the recommendations now goes to the grassroots institutions, the police, the ODPP at the grass for implementation. So that is the entire architect of the decision making of the council. Top there, but a very supportive group there, very supportive committees discussing issues thoroughly so that we are able to make the best decisions. Remember at top there, like the Chief Justice is also the leader of Judiciary, ODPP, Inspector General. Those are relatively, let me not say busy people, but they are engaged, heavily engaged with their institutions, and they require support. That is why we have that hierarchical kind of a model for ease of decision making.
So when the council meets, then the proper council meeting is like a summit.
Yes.
It's like you and General Assembly.
It's like a cabinet.
Coming to discuss the reports that are coming from the various committees.
Yes.
This committee on court users committees has told us this. This committee on children welfare has done this. So you're all just sitting and looking. These are the recommendations of the committee. If there's any input, we give the input, and then we vote yes, we vote no. We give now the executive director and his secretariat the mandate then to move it on. I want to go back also to the issue of the satisfaction. So you said you conduct satisfaction surveys with the players in the justice sector, including the citizens. Just take us through the last 10 years. Have you seen an improvement in the satisfaction survey, and where are we at right now? Are people saying that they are 40% satisfied with the services of the judiciary and the judicial sector players, or what level are we?
Thank you. There has been 3 surveys. They were spearheaded by the judiciary, not by the judiciary at that level. And the conceptualization was because in the justice sector there is what we call upstream and downstream. At downstream, this is the point you'll be able to gather all the experiences of a person, right from the time he was arrested, before he is even convicted and or taken to prison. That's the point you'll get the remadees, get the accused, those coming from prisons, prison wardens, prosecutors. You'll get all their views. As at now, the satisfaction is around between 60 and 65%. I can't recall whether 61, 62 exactly. That's where we are. At the ordinary benchmarks, satisfaction level of above 60 is quite satisfactory, because now what remains is pushing it now towards 60, towards 70, 80, and 100. And we would not like to complain. Of course, we know, and we are able to know areas of dissatisfaction, and we have taken them positively.
What are those areas? I mean, what is this 35% dissatisfaction? Because I look at it from that angle. 35% dissatisfaction, that's a very high percentage.
No, Eric, you are a bit pessimistic.
Yes, by nature.
I would have gone for why the 65% satisfaction. But now that you have talked about dissatisfaction,
more than a third.
Yeah, the dissatisfaction stems from various fronts. One major issue is when there is delay. Ordinarily, when you visit a government office, you would want to be served within the shortest time period. As I had made my remarks earlier, a delay in terms of maybe resolution of cases where all prayers are involved, that's a cause of dissatisfaction. You'd agree with me that government resources are limited. Even as Kenyans, we really hit what we want to achieve in terms of tax correction, so that now we can finance government projects. So that has an adverse effect in terms of including physical infrastructure. So one area of dissatisfaction is physical infrastructure. You go to maybe a police station, you realize the cell is kidogo. To a court, all of us are not fitting in a single courtroom. But nonetheless, that's an area we have really focused on in terms of improving the infrastructure. And one strategy recently, and which now we are really giving a lot of emphasis, is the use of technology. If there is congestion in a court, we don't want everybody to come to court. Can we use technological platforms to reduce that? We are at close conversation with the National Treasury for additional funding to the GJRO sector or the justice sector. And of course, we know as a country the resource basket has to be shared across all government ministries. But we are optimistic that going forward we can address those physical issues of staffing, so that we can address dissatisfaction. Let me give an example. For you to give government services, what do you require? You require labor and capital resources. Do we have enough police in the country? Do we have enough judges? Do we have enough prosecutors? Those challenges are there. The problem is not very big. We have good, or what I may term as optimal numbers to drive us to the next level, but we still require additional numbers.
Would you say that the challenges that are faced, still looking at that 35%, would you say that the challenges that are currently being faced are as a result of external factors, or are there internal factors that could maybe help to reduce that number even more? Are there things within the system that can be improved upon, or are we looking like external factors of labor, which of course then is directly linked to the limited source of funds and things like this?
I would like to be honest and say, in any situation we would not miss a few internal factors affecting service delivery, and that's what is primarily, or becomes like a recurrent agenda of the council. When they hold that closed-door meeting, they will discuss all manner of issues. They will say, you are not maybe doing this properly. Can you handle it this way? Can you improve on this and this? Without mentioning specifics, those issues are addressed at that council level and even at the grassroots by CUC. A simple issue like which affects administration of justice at the grassroots. The issue of witnesses coming to court. Who brings the witnesses? Those issues, they will discuss them in that closed door meeting and address them. So those are the internal issues.
Okay.
I would not quantify to what extent the internal versus external has an effect, but for internal, I think they are less, and we will be able now going forward. We have put in place strategies to address them.
Okay. I'm curious as to where then the NCAJ falls when it comes to matters arising in the country. Is there a role that is played directly there? matters justice. I mean, right now there are many conversations that are being had. There are many things that have come to the fore. We're looking at things like extrajudicial killings, which play directly to the justice that Kenyans would seek, whether for themselves or for the basic units of society, right? We have many things cropping up every now and then. Does the NCAJ play a direct role when it comes to either then looking for sources of recourse, redress, or are we saying it's just within the court that the NCAJ will play out its mandate and within the court users, or matters justice in the country in general? Is there a voice here that is led by the NCAJ?
There is a voice. The issues you have mentioned are more of criminal in nature, and NCAJ has a dedicated committee known as Criminal Justice Sector Reforms. The committee is dealing with all issues affecting Kenyans in terms of crime.
Okay.
The reforms, emerging crime, terrorism, extrajudicial issues. Those issues are discussed at length by that committee, and the solutions emanate from the committee. Some of them may require escalation to the council for the final decision making, and then from the council there would flow the action by specific institutions.
Okay.
Let me give this example. When COVID came, the retired Chief Justice through NCAJ addressed the country and scaled down court operations, police, not really police operations, reduced access to the offices of justice sector agencies, and that was the role, a positive role, which was played by NCAJ as an intervention to the pandemic. And I can authoritatively say Kenyan justice sector was not extremely or hardly hit by the pandemic because of those interventions that were timely done by the council. And one of the key things which was done was initiate prison decongestion program. Because that time we were told, if I'm next to you here, I'm next to Muga here, that COVID would really spread. And so we thought of issue of decongestion, and that was a plus. A lot of inmates were released, and we were able to address the issue of the pandemic in prisons. In courts, we adopted technology. In other offices, there were technology initiatives. And I think as a sector, there was good progress.
Can I give another example?
Yes.
Like currently, what we are seeing now with the dumping of bodies in water bodies around the country, many would say that there is a clear lapse in terms of justice. It doesn't matter who it is that had died. Those who work in the police service, those who are civilians walking about, going about their daily business, there's a cry for justice there. How would the NCAJ then play? I mean, because you said that there's a committee that would sit and deal with matters like this. In this particular case, how would we see the NCAJ playing its role here?
For that issue, again, it's not one of the issues we'd want to see as Kenyans, you and me. So it's not a good phenomenon. What I can say is that the council meets 3 times in a year. That's quarterly basis. For this quarter starting January to March, the council will be meeting at a date in February. So that will be an issue for discussion. I would not want to preempt, but there will be a discussion around that area, because we need to unearth the source of such. I don't want to classify them as crime as at now, but those bad things. So that now there will be a solution. My request to Kenyans is that They give us little time as NCAJ in terms of all the institutions. We unearth the issues, and the issues will be dealt with and addressed in due course. There is
Dr.
a meeting in
Marani.
February, and it will definitely be part of the
Has the
discussion.
police ever come to the council to, express concern about the speed of delivery of justice? And here I mean, so police are the ones who are, interacting directly with citizens, with the complainants. They start an investigation. They take the investigation file to the DPP. Prosecution commences. The law mandates the judicial officer to release this person, the suspect, on bail. The police are the ones who are seeing the person that they investigated so painstakingly walking around and about with a lot of impunity. Have the police ever come to say, you know what, guys? We are doing so much work, we are bringing criminals to court, and we are seeing the criminals walking around. Has there been such a complaint? Have you dealt with that at NCAJ?
It's not about the police. Everybody has brought up issues, or what I may call complaints.
This particular one is about the police. Have the police raised this as a concern, as a point of concern, where they say they feel that all the work that they do sometimes is just not supported by the system?
I would really stick to the issue of it's not police alone. Everybody raises issues about other institutions, and they discuss. Even the prosecutors, they are Kenyans. They walk around. They are also affected as individuals by crime. Even us, we are all affected. So it's a forum where all those grievances or complaints come in, and institutions will say, maybe my brother, you could handle this way. Maybe we could move with speed. The ODPP will tell the police, maybe you can do this. The court will tell them in those forums, and there will be a discussion and definitely a kind of a solution. It's not about one, like the police complaining. It's about all of them having a conversation.
Okay. We'll continue the conversation shortly as we wind up this one. But let's say goodbye to the audience on KTN Home who've been with us since the top of the hour. The conversations happen every weekday morning on SpiceFM, and you can switch over to SpiceFM. If you're in Nairobi, it's 94.4, Mombasa 87.9, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 Nakuru, 97.7 Malindi, 90.9 in Nyeri, or 96.7 in Eldoret.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life.
So, City, you wanted to ask Dr. Morani?
I did. Because given what I have heard, it sounds good, and that consultative forum that they have and looking for solutions together, I mean, one couldn't ask for a better, setup in which to work. But then I have to ask the question, what powers do you actually have? Because you sit, you discuss, and you say implement. For instance, how then do you ensure that what you have suggested should be implemented is actually implemented? That's question number one. Question number 1B.
I'm on air.
Yes, you are on air.
Okay. Thank you.
You are on air.
I thought we are still in the break. Carry on.
Yes. So, generally speaking, NCAJ, what powers does it have? Given what it does, again, what powers does it have?
The powers are there. You see, once a decision is made, and this is how the government operates, once the council makes the decision, the implementers are the individual institutions.
Yes.
So from the council flows the decision to the institution. From the institutions flows what I may term as execution memos, like to all police stations, to all courts. This issue has been discussed at the council. These were the deliberations, agreement, recommendations. Take up A, B, C, and D issues and implement in such a manner. So the implementation is at the institutional level, but again, After a month or so, they come together and deliberate on progress.
Okay. And is there a follow-up?
The follow-up is there.
So they are mandated then to report back to the NCAJ on the implementation of the NCAJ's recommendations.
Exactly. It's what I may call top-down, bottom-up.
We're not going to be able to get away from that one.
Not economic model.
Yes.
Reporting structure. Doctor,
you know the top-down. It's from the council, policy, rigor, institutional
to
decisions,
the institution,
to the grassroots, CUCs, and institutions. From the grassroots, there are specific, unique issues at the grassroots. Maybe they will even make recommendations on areas that require improvement, and the same is escalated
back to the top, to Dr. Maranga's desk. Thank you very much, Dr. Moses Maranga, the Executive Director of the National Council on the Administration of Justice, this being #Justice Thursday. Yes, we have actually even had a conversation with a member of the council, and this is the Honorable Chief Magistrate Abdul Kadir Lorot. He's the chairman of the court users committees. And we talked about the court users at the grassroots level and what they do, and also we've had a conversation with the Ombudsman's office and the judiciary. Asante for joining us. And go and say hello to all the other members of the council and the secretariat.
Thank you very much.
So much.
Maybe allow me to thank you once again for this opportunity. We don't take it for granted, and we look forward towards more engagement. Such forums.
Let's see. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Choose your preferred driver, mode of transport, and negotiate your fare to your destination for a safe, comfortable, and affordable trip only with InDriver.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM.
This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. All eyes are on the Supreme Court, which will pronounce itself on the matter before it on how to divide property after divorce. The court will rule on the merits of the case against Paul Ogari Mayaka and Mary Nyambura Kankara. In the case involving Mary Nyambura and Paul Ogari Mayaka, Nyambura claims that Paul was her husband because they had lived together for about 33 years and therefore asked the court to decide whether their come-to-stay situation was legal and whether they could share their quiet property. The Court of Appeal earlier ordered Nyambura to sell her house and share the proceeds 50% each. However, she appealed to the Supreme Court, where judges Philomena Mwilo, Mohamed Ibrahim, Smokin Wanjala, Joaquin Dungu and Isaac Lenaola cited the case as one that will provide guidance on how such cases will be handled. In another case, Joseph Ombogi Ongetoto and his wife Martha Bosibori want the Supreme Court to decide whether Bosibori should get 30% of the property they acquired while they were together, as well as the 20% of the rented houses they built at that time. The trial began in 2017 in the High Court, where Judge Roslyn Ogo ordered that they share the property equally, each 50% of the property they owned. Judge Ogo explained that Bosibori had spent her time raising his children and that she was entitled to a certain percentage of the property. However, in the Court of Appeal at the time, Judges Al-Nasir Vesram, Wanjiku Karanja and Martha Kome, the current Chief Justice, reduced the amount of property owed to Bosibori to 30% of the homes they own and as well as the 20% of the rented houses they own. The decision prompted Ombogi to file a lawsuit in the country's highest court. The decision of these two cases will no doubt shed light on the plight of many couples as well as those who are in an informal marriage or calmly staying. Now, at least 13% of serving police officers are suffering from some form of stress-related mental illness. This is according to the National Police Service Commission. Officers largely drawn from the administration police are admitted to hospital with mental issues, even as their commanders are taken through a course to identify and humanely deal with stressed officers. With grim statistics on mental health casting a cloud over the police service, Deputy Inspector General in charge of Administration Police Nur Gabo led regional, county and section commanders of the Administration Police from across the country in a sensitization workshop held at the Chiromo Hospital Group targeting mental wellness within the service.
mental issues within the police is not a disciplinary issue. It's not a HR issue. It's a sickness which can be treated. And we have instructed our commanders, and the Inspector General has given a clear guidance that any officer who is sick or who has some mental issues, he or she will be able to be brought to these facilities.
National Police Service Chief Executive Officer Joseph Onyanga said that 13% of police officers in the country are suffering from some form of mental illness. Now, a post-mortem exercise on the bodies that were retrieved from River Yala kicked off with Chief Government Pathologist Johansson Odor leading the exercise. The process is expected to continue today, with affected families flocking the Yala Hospital morgue to submit their DNA samples for matching in identifying their kin's bodies. Human rights defenders who were present called on the government to consider setting up a DNA repository to ease the identification of bodies in instances where relatives are unable to travel for the exercise. The activist also sent in an independent pathologist to oversee the post-mortem exercise. According to the families, the autopsy will be concluded in 2 days, but they might have to wait for 2 more weeks for consolidation and subsequent matching of the submitted DNA samples to their bodies. 2 people are nursing gunshot wounds while 4 others escaped death by a whisker after the vehicle they were traveling in was ambushed by suspected Al-Shabaab militants at Langola Simba area, Lamu County. The 6 persons who were part of a court procession were returning from a mobile court in Kipini when the militants ambushed them. The suspected militants are also said to have opened fire on 2 different vehicles belonging to construction company H. Young prior to ambushing the court officials' vehicles. Both vehicles were en route to Gamba from Witu. And after storming out of Musalia Mudavadi's coronation at the Bomas of Kenya, Wiper Party leader Kalonzo Musyoka and businessman Jimmy Wanjigi held a consultative meeting in what they say will result in a major announcement. Though they declined to address journalists, Wanjigi stated that a major pact was in the offing. Kalonzo will from today ring-fence his support base with a 3-day campaign tour of the 3 Ukambani counties. He will be accompanied by Wanjigi, who is also eyeing the country's top seat in an address at the Kitui Stadium. And the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner has called on the data processors and controllers to safeguard and embrace a culture of privacy while handling data to ensure compliance to legal provisions. Office of the Director of Data Protection Commissioner, Director General Immaculate Kasait, who spoke during a virtual forum, said data controllers must look into ways of ensuring their systems and processes are in place and secure to ensure data protection. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
The SpiceFM Newswire is brought to you by InDriver. Download the InDriver app from the App Store or Google Play Store to enjoy a safe, comfortable, and affordable ride around Nairobi.
Okay, so we've got traffic still building on Raila Odinga Way this morning going towards Gong Road. Quite some on Uhuru Highway as well. Mishmash of traffic within the city centre. And coming off of Thika Superhighway, that has not let up. Well, okay, that's not true. It has quite some. So we're looking at the Utali Drift and then going out towards the city. That's where we still see some traffic. Other parts of Westlands in and out there, here and there. It's settling down a little bit. We should be all right coming back into the morning. But for now, there's still pockets of it and it continues. Let's talk about it, shall we? On SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. the only way to start your
It
day.
is 8 minutes after 9. How you doing? Welcome to the fourth hour of Kenya's biggest conversation, The Situation Room on SpiceFM, live streaming online on YouTube. City has the day's proverb.
Mchonga mwiko hukimbiza mkono wake.
Mchonga what?
Mwiko, mwiko, other known as big spoon.
Yeye nakimbiza
mkono yake, sio mtu mwingine. Yes.
Mchonga mwiko, mkono inatoroka.
Yes.
Unakimbiza mkono,
yes.
Unakimbiza mkono. Rudi hapa uchonge mwiko.
Yes. The maker of a wooden spoon saves his hand from the fire. You know, there are proverbs which I've come across. Even as I read and I look for the meaning, they puzzle me. And those ones I put aside. You know why? It is very difficult to talk about a proverb you're not convinced about yourself.
Sure. Yeah.
Yes, and you're wondering, what on earth are these people talking about? Or the basic clarity that a proverb ought to have, from which now then discussions can emanate, is actually not there. So I wonder, when I come across such proverbs, am I then saying that there will be proverbs that only the writers and the creators understand?
Unless they, support it with another written document that explains.
Yes,
and it comes with an explainer.
Preferably detailed.
Yes.
In some cases with diagrams. Or a skit.
It follows a discussion that was there in the 1980s about writing. And the issue was, who does a writer write for? It raged among African writers, whether it was Wole Soyinka, whether it was people like Okigbo, Ngugi. There was okay. Is it so that he can express ideas that only he can understand, or is it that other people should understand? Because there are people who, for instance, would write poems and you had no clue what on earth they're talking about.
Absolutely no idea.
And then on the explainer, you were told about miles and miles of imagery and et cetera, that had you not been explained to by somebody who was a studier of their works, you would have been lost.
And even when it is explained, you're still lost.
Yeah.
Because you listen, the explanation makes sense. You go back to the written script, you say, this one, how?
Like, so what was he thinking? If that is what he was thinking, why didn't he just go
and say, this is what I'm thinking?
Do not go gentle into that dark night, and then you hear somebody's talking about the wars between the North and the South. You're like,
Okay. That's what you talk about. Really? Anyway.
Some good news, by the way, guys.
Yay!
Remember when COVID came?
You're one of those.
During COVID. And, schools were ordered closed and all. And one of the things that we kept harping on here is we were caught flat-footed in our education sector. Why is it that we are talking about children staying at home and not being able to access learning of any form? The education ministry is talking about, we're rolling out online learning. And then we're asking, what online learning? You don't even have the infrastructure or the capacity to roll out online learning. And we said KICD was rolling these ones out on free-to-air TV channels. Who has TVs? Now, the Teacher Service Commission yesterday rolled out a new pilot program on actual online learning. Okay?
Pilot
for virtual learning.
Pilot. Just asking.
Yes. This pilot is being conducted by teachers in two schools, Alliance Girls High School and Machakos Boys, where staffed institutions with better facilities will have their teachers share lessons with students in satellite schools across 10 counties. So, teachers from Alliance and Machakos will share their lessons on what are the subjects? The subjects are here. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, and English will be live streamed from these host schools to the recipient schools in 10 counties. Several schools have been identified. Okay? Which means that we are basically piloting learning remotely.
Right.
Teacher in a certain place, it's live streamed, and then students in a remote place are sitting down and they're watching this from several gadgets. They're conducting learning. What we were talking about. Now, what is the challenge that we are likely to experience? Number one, internet connectivity. Right. Number two, the availability of the gadgets, the infrastructure, and all such. Number three, it's the harmonization. So when you talk about now teachers in this particular, central location, then beaming and live streaming their lessons, is there two-way communication and conversation? If a learner is not getting and understanding what the teacher is teaching, is there a way of feedback, of asking a question immediately and saying, please repeat that? I don't get that.
Or I have a question.
I have a question here. How does it roll out? And that's the whole purpose of piloting it.
Which is why a pilot then being introduced in this manner is a good thing, because then you'll be able to roll out. That's what you do. You want to feel the dough with your fingers and say, okay, here, where are we having a problem? Is it too tight here? Is it too hard? Must we add a little bit of water, right? If I can just come off from the very beginning and say, I think this is a brilliant idea by KICD. And when we thought about this, when we were in the very beginning of this COVID, when school closed and we're like, okay, so what's going to happen to students? Were we not here wishing and praying and hoping that something would be done whereby, look, it's COVID today and then there's something else tomorrow? Were we not saying, we pray that there was a mechanism, some kind of support that would be instituted so that in case something happens and proper or normal learning cannot take place, what then would be the interim? Because there are some countries in the world where schooling never stopped, whether there was COVID, whether there was a hurricane, earthquake, whatever, they were able to continue. Now, to forge this curriculum, I think is a brilliant idea.
Yep.
Unfortunately, like you said, you're dealing with very many things that would, kind of be hurdles in the way, or challenges that would stop it from being done, or that at least would make it difficult, right? And for me, one of the biggest things is that internet connectivity, because it is vital. You don't have it, you can't have downtime, for example.
Yep.
Of internet.
You
can't say that today, for example, there's no power in this area, so therefore we will not be able to have class, because then therefore we are not going to be able to connect, especially if we're using gadgets that have to hook up to power to work. While this is being done, this is one of those projects that is going to need several complementary projects alongside to make sure that it happens. What does the grid look like? Are there remote areas where it's not even a dream about these things to happen, whereby you need to set it up? I'm not even worried about the communication, because I think there's a brilliant network already, even for within the education system, to get things moving. After all, we supply and get exam papers to the furthest part of wherever. So that can be done. The connectivity for me is an issue. There was the balloons that went up at some point.
Connectivity, by the way, for me is also not an issue.
Okay, so that can happen.
I'll tell you why. Because schools are the polling centers in an election across the country. Polling centers report, and they, like we were being told by the ICT Cabinet Secretary yesterday, this is where results are transmitted.
They're transmitted from school.
From a school to Bomas in Nairobi.
Okay.
From all those schools that participate as. That means that we have connectivity. It's possible for us to actually get connectivity like that in all the schools.
Sure, but what we're saying now is in the event that something happens that children cannot go to school, so that means they have to access from home.
Yes.
Isn't it? That would then be the challenge.
That would be a secondary challenge.
Yes. Right? Which I think needs to be considered, because COVID is a brilliant example of that. Children were not going to school. They had to be home.
Yep.
Or if you're going to say, then let them come to a community center or something, is there enough of a network to say that connectivity for internet exists? And then I see then that being an issue. There has to then be the introduction of, at the very least, low-cost gadgets that everybody can get. If they can't get them, and I'm talking low cost, I'm talking ridiculously low cost. Like some of the phone providers that we see having you pay something like 20 shillings for a phone. That's how low cost we're talking about here. And if that is not going to be available for purchase by families who need them, then will there be a state-sponsored program, for example, whereby you can get these gadgets and continue learning? These are things that we have to talk. It has to be done, because there you are saying, "I have a question. How am I going to relay my question?
How do you answer the question? How do you ask the question? How, if a teacher wants to?" I think several things. Principally, we can roll out online learning within a year.
In principle.
Across the country.
Yes.
We'll start with schools. I mean, you start with schools. So online learning, you can go to school, or you can go to a central location where there's a facility, there's a screen and a sound system where you sit down and you learn. And you get access to this. And even in those circumstances where you want children to not be congested, you can still take them to a school environment, because schools are big, and they'll be able to do that. Because one thing that you want to do is you want to remove them from that home environment where they are likely to get distracted, and bring them to a school. I think you can roll it out. I also think it's very possible for us to work out the modalities of the two-way communication. A challenge that I see coming is going to come from one critical stakeholder: teachers. I say this because the NAT Secretary General Collins Oyu, who was present at the launch of this pilot program, said counties are not the same, schools are not the same, we have gaps, technology cannot replace teachers. Technology cannot replace
teachers.
But is technology supposed to replace teachers, or is it supposed to augment the work that teachers do?
Or is it not that teachers are now supposed to use technology to further education? That's what we're saying here.
If we're talking about online learning, right? It works in one way of addressing the teacher shortage, the teacher gap. We have a deficit of about 100,000 teachers countrywide. At least 20,000 teachers should be hired every year to bridge this gap, according to a recommendation by the Kenya National Union of Teachers.
Yes.
Okay? So they can still be hired. But if you're using technology, if there's one teacher who does not have to teach 5, this teacher in Alliance is actually teaching math, and in his lesson, the whole country
can
learn.
If he's in one place and everybody's hooked up to that, which is very, very possible.
Yeah.
Yes, but then teaching is not just a question of listening to what the tutor is putting forth, but it's also about interaction with the content.
Yeah.
Now, if you're saying that there's a teacher and this thing is being beamed out to God knows how many schools, where does the interaction fit in?
This is the thing that we're talking online. In terms of challenges.
They're online. Just like in Zoom meetings.
You can raise your hand and ask a question in a Zoom meeting.
I understand. Zoom meetings. You see, I think Eric
already.
He knows where I'm going with this. And but the question I'm asking actually offers credence and relevance to the pilot. Because when you then pilot, all these things that we may ask and others that we cannot think of are brought to the fore, and thereafter there's the possibility of addressing them correctly. However, thinking of the pilot, this issue of schools, it's primary and secondary, isn't it? Or is it just primary? Is it just secondary? I'm going to
the pilot is secondary.
It is secondary only.
It's Alliance Girls and Machakos Boys.
Right.
These are secondary schools.
All right. Therein lies the first deficit. Why only secondary? And yet, where we have the largest number of learners is in the primary schools. Okay? What is it? 33,000 schools in the country, primary? 10,000 going to 11,000 secondary schools in the country? Now, you are piloting using Alliance and then some satellite schools as has been indicated in this particular article. Okay? In terms of sample sizing, 12
counties.
I get it. I get it. What I'm saying is this, you may very well get to the heart of the matter and understand what it is that is required. Okay? But my issue here is this. It's a fairly small issue. Okay? One, the involvement of teachers in this piloting process, because they argue that they have trained 163,000 tutors to roll out the virtual lessons. Okay? Which means there's specific training which is specific to that particular process.
Yeah, how to log in. So it's a very, very, very key component of that training.
But alongside training people and rolling out the pilot scheme, I think sometimes what we fail to do is what we used to call in research stakeholder engagement. Okay? Yes, you've trained them. Stakeholder in this matter are the unions. Yes, they are there when you're launching, but we are not given details as to how it is they have been involved in understanding what it is that is being done, how it will be rolled out, and how it doesn't threaten this thing that there seems to be an issue. Because we're talking about rolling out, and I'm thinking it's complementary. They're thinking you want to phase out teachers. And it is... online learning or virtual learning doesn't phase out teachers. It actually doesn't.
It doesn't. Doesn't, if you ask me.
By its very nature, it doesn't.
Yeah.
It complements what you're doing.
I think even the teachers and their unions, they understand this. And by the time you saw them at this meeting, it means that there had been some sort of engagement and they are known well. Yeah, so identify school heads, identify the teachers that we're going to train. Kai Ndimuli, the chair of the Secondary School Head Association. So why are we starting with Form 2? Because this is just going to be done with Form 2 students. Teachers have been involved. The issue then of addressing their fears could also have been, okay, yeah, we hear you, but how about we go through the pilot
And
so that
then
we can
let's
also see the lessons. At what point, what level of engagement is a teacher at various stages of this e-learning engaging or needed?
But you can see, because when there is even a whiff of change or the introduction of something that even lightly suggests that you may be replaced, can't you see why that agitation would come about? It doesn't matter what sector you're dealing with. We've seen it in the industry, we've seen it in the finance. Everywhere there's a change that would come about, or auxiliary service. The people who've been at the core of this thing for the longest time, of course, are going to object. Whether it makes sense or not. And you'll find that they withhold that sense-making part and will never let anybody know that they actually think it makes sense, but that they must, kind of agitate against it.
There's
it's going to happen, whether you like it or not.
Yes, they will, but there's some sectors which have to be labor intensive. It doesn't matter what you do.
Yeah.
There's no way you can get rid of teachers in education.
Just like there's no way you can get rid of healthcare workers.
It won't. So I don't.
Just like you can't get rid of the security services or the discipline forces.
Yeah.
There's not you can't virtualize them.
Even if you tried hard and very early in the morning, it doesn't make sense, because you have people you still have people passing through the system. It's not like your tea bushes where you said, let's mechanize this thing. The tea bushes are not live, right? These are human beings who constantly need this shepherding and care, whether it's online, whether it's in person. So I can understand the first jitters would be, oh, hold on, what's going to then happen to our jobs and careers as teachers? But if anything, I see a situation whereby they would even be needed more.
More importantly, if you actually consider, online, COVID opened us up to realities that we had hitherto not even considered. But now here we are. It's not just COVID. There are parts of this country that are ravaged by the vagaries of nature, and oftentimes when that happens, whether it's a flood, the learning is interrupted. Okay? There are some places when we have the issues that we normally have of banditry and what have you, the physical teacher may not be available to actually go and teach. So online learning becomes useful. Eric, I don't know when this happened when I was in primary school.
What?
I'm about to say what happened when I was in primary school.
Say they brought online learning when you were in primary school.
No. There used to be lessons that were radio lessons, nothing online about it. And certain periods, so there would be a speaker. The radio was in the headmaster's office. The speaker was in the class.
Right.
And we would listen to this particular lesson on radio. Okay? Now.
It still happens.
Yes. The class teacher would be present.
Class teacher had to be trained on how to switch on the radio. tune into the frequency.
Speaker Baba.
Sign into Zoom.
Well, you went to these schools which had speakers in the classroom. Those who went to schools which don't have speakers in the classrooms, it's a teacher who came with a physical radio. Radio. You have to tune the speaker. HCT. Anyway, endelea.
You know this man?
Yes, I do.
Endelea.
I know. Don't worry.
Okay. Now, you see, I brought in the issue of the radio because I don't see the difference between that sort of learning and what we're now calling
the online learning.
Yes,
it's basically the same. In fact,
yes.
It moved on from there's the radio classes, and now there are TV classes.
Yes.
Okay?
They are.
The same KICD has a TV channel.
Yes.
Where they do the same thing that they do on radio, they do it again on TV. And the KICD channel is on free-to-air, available on Signet, and you get it across the country as long as you just have TV that is working. Okay? So it happens. Now, my issue, though, is, you see, all those things were supposed to be like, it's like an added lesson. It's like a revision lesson.
Yes.
It's not actually introducing the concept. It's revision. It's the same thing that we're talking about here with this online learning. It's revision for a certain time. So you've done science, and then now you're going to have the science online lesson.
Oh, right. So it's not like a brand new lesson, new concept.
Yeah. And the science teacher from Alliance is going now to come and...
So the question is why?
What for?
Yeah.
Yes, but in
what are those KICD lessons for? What do they? How do they help?
But in the absence of the infrastructure, so that parts of this country that perhaps need it more than others are actually connected, so that they can benefit from it. It's them who already are disadvantaged by virtue of where it is they come from, the terrain, how affected they are by the goings on in that particular part of the country.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, they are the most vulnerable in this instance. Because the areas where you post someone, they'd rather look for another job. Yes. And the people do. So, once you have this sort of situation, you want to ask the infrastructure that goes with it. All this I've read and I've understood. Good. Tick. There isn't enough story about, in this particular article, about how it is they're going to achieve this, because there is something fundamental, it's called connectivity.
I think the schools that have been identified, the first thing is that they identified that they have access. Or even those, there are some, maybe, for purposes of balancing the report that will come out of this, there will be schools that don't have, adequate high bandwidth access to, internet, blah, blah, blah. So those, they'll feature in the report.
Could they not also have piloted with how it is you can actually get connectivity to every school in the country while they're piloting?
That would have been a brilliant pilot, actually.
That is not even a pilot.
It's existing.
There's a project that was rolled out by the government years ago, connecting the entire country to the National Fiber Optic Network.
Eric.
It's actually National Fiber Optic Network.
Eric.
There is a Kenya ICT Authority.
Eric.
That is in charge of the National Fiber Optic Network.
Eric.
So you as TSC, you look at it and there's a National Fiber Optic Network. So that is not I will go and tell the ICT ministry, I want to use the National Fiber Optic Network. Mulijenga ama mukujenga?
Eric.
Questions.
You know something, I think we want to go for a break, don't we?
Yes.
Okay, let's go for a break before then I'll say what I'll
Then you'll let us know something. It's 28 minutes to 10.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day. Spice up your life. 102.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
This nation has never healed genuinely from the 2000-2008 violence. We've never had a healing process. We swept it under the rug.
Let me tell you, the handshake was the most disastrous political event in the history of country. after the coup attempt of 1982.
There's no Kikuyu pothole, Luo lack of water, or Kamba, lack of traffic.
Yeah.
There is no Luya lack of drugs in the hospitals. Or Jaluo one. All our issues are the same issues.
If you are in a room and just about everybody in that room has a court case or another, what impression does that give you?
What are you saying? Why haven't you done it in the last 20 years? But they're telling us, like August, some miracle is going to happen. My friend, I want to tell Kenyans, you'll be in for a huge shock.
The weather with Spice.
All right, Nairobi, sunny conditions. We'll see highs today of 26 and lows of 15. It's sunny at 18 in Nakuru, highs of 27 and lows of 13. 26 will be the high in Nyeri, where it's currently sunny at 17, coming down to lows of 12. It's sunny at 18 in Eldoret, highs of 25 and lows of 12. And we're looking at mostly sunny conditions at 28 in Mombasa, highs of 31 and lows of 24. Malindi is sunny at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 25. Kisumu is sunny at 24, highs of 31 and lows of 19. Sunny at 25 in Kakamega, 31 will be the high and lows of 16. In Kampala, it's sunny at 23, getting highs of 29 and lows of 18, while in Dar es Salaam continues to rain at 28, highs of 31 and lows of 26. It's cloudy in Joburg at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 17, and it's still hazy in Lagos at 23. That'll be the low for today, going to highs of 34. It's sunny in Kinshasa at 22, we'll see highs of 32. Let's look into Beijing, where it's sunny into early evening. 2 will be that high, lows of -7. 3 degrees and cloudy in Paris, highs of 6 and lows of 3. And we're looking at cloudy conditions that are slightly warmer in London at 8 with highs of 12. It's -6 and clear in New York. The high will be 0 and lows of -7.
Spice up your life.
All right, folks, we're still in traffic hour. We should be out of it in a few minutes or so. And the streets are yielding. This is good. Slight traffic outbound on Mombasa Road today, just along that Imaradaima stretch. We should be all right. It's looking much better on Langata Road. We're still seeing some action on Jogo Road today, and the Uhuru Highway is where we see the most of it right now, slowly inching into the city. The Thika Superhighway is as it was at 6 o'clock, free and clear now, and the Kiambu Road is what's holding a little bit of traffic going then towards Pangani. Coming out of Westlands, much better now, guys, and most parts of the city you should be in and out in a breeze. There's something going on along Peponi. Not quite sure what's causing that. That whole Thigiri Kitisuru Road area, slowly moving. But we'll keep an eye on that through the morning. Tell us what you see, guys. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Text 40127.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
24 minutes to 10. So the conversation continues, and we'd like you to join the conversation on 0719-012-600. The Teacher Service Commission yesterday rolled out a pilot project on a virtual lesson. And this is students in Form 2 in some select schools across 10 counties are going to get online learning on mathematics, physics, chemistry, biology, and English. Teachers from Alliance Girls High School and Machakos Boys will be the ones providing these online classes to these students in the select 10 counties, Form 2 students. The whole idea here is so that we can then have a national e-learning platform that works across the country. So if we get to a position, a point like 2 years ago when schools had to close down or shut down because of COVID-19, students can still learn virtually. The question is this a good plan? Do you trust that this is actually going to yield the desired results? From past experience dealing with the government of the Republic of Kenya, the citizens of the Republic of Kenya, the teachers of Kenya, the children of Kenya.
You named some acronyms there a few
Not
minutes
me.
ago.
Oh, so let me tell you about it.
I want the people who had been providing
Internet connectivity.
Who are they?
Let me tell you. There's an authority called the Kenya ICT Authority.
Indeed.
The Kenya ICT Authority has been implementing a project called the National Optic Fiber Backbone. Phase 1 completed in 2007. Phase 2 started in 2014. It's taking fiber optic, that is high-speed internet connectivity to all 47 counties, starting with the county headquarters, and then the county headquarters going to various other government offices.
It's taking, so it's present, continuous.
Oh, so far, by the time they had updated their website, 1,200 kilometers of 1,600 kilometer civil works completed, 900 kilometers of fiber optic laid down in the backbone section. The backbone section has completed and fiber installed in all the 47 counties of the country. Metropolitan fiber civil works have been completed in 35 of 47 counties.
Okay.
There is fiber across all the counties.
So what we're saying essentially is that the lines have been laid.
There's fiber.
Okay.
There's connectivity.
There's connectivity.
Okay.
In all the counties.
47 counties of Kenya have fiber connectivity.
And there's evidence to prove that they have, apart from that report.
Well, I don't know whether there's evidence. There are those who would be stakeholders who tell us whether there is evidence, which is the county governments. Do you have internet connectivity?
And
yes.
Then there's the phase 2 where the connectivity is supposed to reach the schools.
So now beyond that, then it starts now spreading to other areas.
Oh, it will start. It hasn't started.
I don't know. It was to spread. First, the most immediate one was government offices.
Government offices.
Government offices in the 47 counties. These are the county offices and the county, the national government offices at the county level. Okay? From there, it's then possible for you to roll it out into the schools. Remember, Jubilee administration when it was coming in, and there was the issue of laptops to all Standard 1 children in 2013, right? They were to rely on the fact that there is a national fiber optic network, internet connectivity. The Jubilee administration's pledge and the work that has been done on ensuring there is access to the national electricity grid across the country. And the reports are over 80% connectivity to the national grid, which means that a majority of schools have access to the national power grid.
Okay.
Are
so
they
steamer,
accessing it?
What? The schools?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know whether all the schools.
know
I just know is that 80%
Have
80% of Kenyans.
they've been provided
in the typical Kenyan fashion, when we talk about 80%, we should be jumping with joy and saying, they've done well. No, you haven't. Since we're talking about the learner, if we're not talking about 100%, then we're not talking about progress, to be honest. Because what happens to the other 20%?
It's work in progress.
No. Since 2013, it's still work in progress.
Yes.
No. Rural electrification was supposed to bring about the sort of environment in which such things were possible.
Yes.
And we know the amount of money that we have been told has been spent on this very thing.
Yes.
And one of the reasons that is given for some of the deficits that keep being reported that are alive in Kenya Power is this. Now, I would assume, and here I would assume correctly, that with this push, the greatest beneficiaries ought to have been these schools, irrespective of how far-flung these schools are.
Yeah.
And in fact, the more, when you talk about the far-flungness of these particular schools, they are the ones who actually ought to benefit more. You know why? Because they're already disadvantaged. They're already far. Because these are the same areas where you'll find road network
not good.
Not existing.
Ambiguous at best. Okay? They're the same places where you'll find that learning is hampered either because, one, people migrate and keep moving, or they are also often faced with the sort of human-induced issues like banditry attacks and so forth.
Yes.
They are the same people who will be affected by, as I said, Mother Nature's vagaries of droughts and floods. So now, if they do not enjoy the benefits that other places enjoy, and at the same level, then this progress we speak of, in my mind, doesn't really amount to much, because those who are most vulnerable and those who are most subject to these issues have their matters and are not being addressed. Now, if you're talking about learning, so it means that these are the people who are going to continuously be disadvantaged when it comes to learning.
Yep.
It's true. When all these projects, when they're being rolled out, they on paper, it's a very, very good project. If you just think about it. So the government was very intent on making sure that there is access to high-speed internet connectivity in the country. So what happened? Licensed private companies and also invested with other companies in East Africa, and we have fiber optic cables landing at the coast in Mombasa.
It landed.
There is one where private sector companies like Safaricom have invested. There's another one where countries like Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda have invested in. There's another one by private sector companies, fiber optic Mombasa, then fiber optic transmission across the country. Now, where I was saying, if you look at those programs, and this is where the NOFIB also was coming in, looking at then spreading, making sure that we have fiber optic connectivity, starting point, government offices, then spread it to schools. You'll see, you may actually talk to people at the ICT authority and they'll tell you we've made some sufficient progress, but not enough support has come in terms of financial and budgetary allocations.
Right.
Where we could have moved this now to schools and made sure that schools have access to this. For schools to have access to this, let's also work in tandem with what the Ministry of Energy and the Kenya Power are doing to make sure that there is connectivity to spreading the grid across the country. As that is also happening, we are working with the Ministry of Roads and Infrastructure to make sure that we're opening up parts of the country with roads from the various roads authorities, whether it's Kenha, whether it's Kura, whether it's the other one is Kera.
So, and I know the pessimism that might ride along with this sometimes would be frowned upon. But then would you say that even as you look at these challenges with which you're... Because look, the brilliance of the idea is not something that we can overmention. It is a very good idea. And even if you're beginning with the revision of subjects, hopefully then in the future you can look at actual teaching of subjects virtually, right? Not just revision of what students have already learned, right? Now, you already know that there are challenges. You already know that there are things that they put in place which, all right, could be called lame duck projects that never really kicked off even after they had kind of started.
Yeah.
For lack of the one thing that always seems to be the bane of this existence is funding. We started off, it sounds nice, and then funding does not allow it to continue. Stalled projects because, okay, it wasn't a priority on somebody's list, and so they just didn't make sure that it continued. So looking at something as sensitive as this, that you could start, and then people would lean on it, and then start to depend on it, and then at some point, poof.
Disappears.
It disappears. So the question is, knowing full well the history of other projects like this, do you even want to start?
You know, if we were to go to the planning of these things, of the things we're discussing, and the papers that have been written, and the plans, believe me, they are beautiful and they cover literally everything, even what we're actually talking about now. They will even cover alternatives and say, in the absence of joining there's this, it can be solar, can be this, can be the other, and indeed, and we can partner with this particular,
create mini grids.
Yes, they're there.
Yep,
they're there. But the reality, unfortunately, is different.
And that reality is because of who we are as a people in this country, led by our very able government in this particular front. And this is corruption, budgeted corruption. You know, sometimes I feel the frustration. I can feel the frustration of, for example, people at the KICD who have worked on this. I can feel the frustration of people at the Teacher Service Commission who have decided, okay, so we have seen what has happened to us because of COVID. We need to do something. There are people who burnt the midnight oil thinking, guys, within 12 months,
let's do this.
We need to have a pilot ongoing on how we can never get back to this point. They have worked on this, they have papers, and then there's, okay, let's roll it out on a pilot. But that pilot is dependent on very many other things.
Which is
That
not within
pilot
their control.
It's not their control. So do we have internet connectivity and access? If I look on paper, there's a government program that started in 2007 to make sure that there is internet connectivity. If I look on paper, there's a government program to make sure that there is electricity access, whether it's through the national grid or whether it's actually allowing mini grids to be set up across the country. There have even been funds from the World Bank to work on these mini grids. If I look on paper, there are all those things are there, and that's what they're using to say, we can actually do it. Get to doing it.
So real.
You know, it raises a very fundamental question. Huh? What do you say of a government that promises much and doesn't fulfill whatever it has promised? It's a simple enough question with a simple enough situation. What do you say of a people who have been conditioned to believe that so long as something little is done, it is okay? And yet it isn't okay. Because these things we speak of, even as they are planned for, they are budgeted for.
Yep.
So then what happens when they're not completed? And there was a budget. The budget is not for 50% of the work or 80%.
It's 100%.
Yes. What then happens? And what is even of greater interest is that you will find political leaders who want to ram it down your throat literally, but you see we've done 20%, and you're thinking, what?
Did you pass in school with 20%?
Where do you pass?
Where do you pass with 20%? And we look at you. Where do you pass with 50%? And we tell you, actually, you've done pretty well. Here, kudos, congratulations. Where does that happen? Actually,
it's in Kenya.
That malaise I told you about.
At least
we have a national malaise of accepting mediocrity.
I'm telling you, you should tarmac a road, but then we put maram and compact it. We say, at least you can
it's
drive on it.
And the excuse will be, the limited government resources. I mean, the budget had to be realigned because of COVID, unexpected emergencies such as COVID. So now in this financial year, what we had started, we could not complete. Maybe it shall be completed by the next government. That is all nonsense. And the worst part is that we all sit back and we tolerate.
Then you say, okay, it's true, they're trying. No worry. Money didn't come. It's okay. We just allow
How
them to
do you
get
think,
by.
for instance, in both the education and the health sector, the private sectors play the all-important role that they play? Because, again, of that attitude, there aren't enough schools. Let's build.
Let me and my community come together and then we build a road.
Yes.
And then the ministry will come and commission it. But we will contribute.
Others say, it's not a bad business to start because there's no school in this area.
And there's need.
You start a school. And it's a private school. Hospital. There is need for healthcare. It isn't being provided.
Over 50% of our healthcare needs in this country are provided by private sector.
Yes, they are.
We're talking about...
when you look at what the private schools and those who are in the association, when they keep talking about the need for the government to give them a leg up or to provide them with some benefit, the role that they're playing is actually the role of the government.
They actually do your job.
In reality.
Yes.
It is the government's duty to provide. But we know it doesn't. Now, I'm sometimes conflicted when I think about whether our attitude is something we've developed over time as a coping mechanism or whether we've actually gotten to a point where we've resigned to it.
I said, no, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, we figured,
we'll just live with
something.
it. We'll be told another one tomorrow, so okay.
Let's not get stressed over this thing.
Yeah.
Let's just
celebrate progress.
But that's what it
no
could
matter
be
how
right
little.
No matter how little.
Even with this thing, that's what it could be right now. That there's some folks who are sitting in some quarters saying, it's not today. It's not today that we saw this one for the first time. We've heard about it before.
Yeah.
So, we're just going, it's okay. They'll talk, they'll make noise. After some time, we'll go and bury it with the other skeletons of projects that had come before. So they're not even moved. They're not phased. And I think you're right. I think it's getting to the point where some people will be like, oh, you know what? Sing, do dance, do ribbon cutting, balloons going up in the air. Oh, it's very nice. Give it 6 months. We'll not be talking about
this thing will be dead.
You know, I was talking to my father-in-law during the December, and I was just talking about this outflow of the of Lake Victoria. You know, I assumed that story had ended. And in my mind, so we're
not talking about.
So he explained to me. He comes from Nyandu. He told me, my friend, what's happened here? People are living in tents. I said, they're doing what? Said yes. Said if you come today, you'll see tents all over the place. I said, hey, what happened to schools? Said, well, we moved some of the children to schools that appear to be on higher ground. Said, but that water level didn't recede to a degree where people could go back to their homes. And some homes you don't think people ever go back to. When we had those landslides in Pokot and those areas, have we had stories that have followed up to tell us whether those people actually went back to their homes and things? Have you read?
When we saw the flooding that happened in the national park in Nakuru and the schools and Baringo had been floating on water, did they go back to school?
Who knows? Only they know.
The house that you saw the roof floating.
Yes. You see, the reason why I asked the question is because...
With the crocodile.
Yes.
Basking on the roof.
That's a crocodile who understands how to sunbathe. Yes. Now, you tell me. Learners are usually very directly affected with all these things. Okay? Even as the TSC, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, continue to try and find ways, in the absence of supporting activities within the government like this, would you say the learning actually goes back to what it ought to be?
Doesn't.
No.
How?
What affects this thing? I think I've been thinking about this, and I think it just goes back to that Ndegwa Commission. The fact that civil servants are also in business
and are allowed by law
and are allowed to participate in business, that's our big issue. Because at every corner somebody is looking at it and saying, so how can I play here? How can I play here? Because this has become a culture. It has been normalized in government. When we talk about, rolling out as UNOFIB, somebody has actually sat back and thought, so what service can I provide? I can provide accommodation to the guys who are doing the fiber optic laying.
Yeah.
I can be the one that they must be mandated. We've put it here that these people must wear overalls. I will provide
our specifications.
I will provide the overalls. So you slow down a project because wait. The overalls are not ready. We can't press launch. These teachers, have we identified the teachers? So how much are we paying the teachers as an allowance because they're participating in this extra thing called e-learning pilot project? How much are we paying them? Allowance. Okay, now, but then you see we need gadgets. So who's going to supply those gadgets?
I have a company.
I know a guy who can actually supply the laptops or the screens. In fact, the better thing is, we may need like a small camera here and there and I can speak. I know someone. Slow down that project before we get...
Hey.
And then you're not paid.
Will you touch it again?
And then you go and remove all your gadgets from the classroom. That whole pilot.
Dead.
Kufa. Or the teachers who are piloting this thing, they do not receive their allowance month 1.
Then they say, okay, let's give them month 2.
Month 2.
Month 3. Almost story.
Get it.
Let me find my way back to where I came from. What are we talking about?
At some point we're going to have to discuss this Ndegwa Commission.
Yes, I think so.
Rather than the report. Because this country has had very many commissions. And, while we're at it, and after discussing it, we also need to discuss the Ndungu Commission. There are things that were set in motion, and somehow the impact of the import over the years isn't actually looked at. Because the norm is every time there is a government project, whether it's a county government, national government project, the side discussion that takes place is what actually takes center stage.
Yes.
Not the discussion about what is planned for. Everything that occupies the minds of those involved has nothing to do with the implementation of what is actually on paper and what is required to be implemented.
Exactly.
And then we wonder why those things actually never get completed.
They never move. Oh, Lapset. So Lapset will come from Lamu, go through Garsen, blah, 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 come to Isiolo. Wait, do you have a piece of land in Isiolo? We need land in Isiolo. Hold that thing first. Go to Isiolo, buy land. Don't even announce it. Buy land.
By the way,
and then now announce.
Eric, do you know the flurry of activities that accompanied Lapset, say, in the Lamu area?
Oh!
The number of people who just
trooped to Lamu
and to buy land.
Yeah.
Everybody was buying. 500,000 acres of land was stolen.
Yes.
In Tana River.
Yes.
Speculators.
Precisely.
Isiolo wezi nunua shamba city.
Kwisha.
Kwisha.
And you know, there are people in the know.
Of course.
Because they even know where it is supposed to. Because these things are planned.
They have the map.
They know it will pass here.
This will be the depot. So this is where I ought to have my piece of land. Now, let's go and launch this thing.
Now we are ready. Meanwhile, students have been there. They've been waiting. They said the pilot project launch. Nothing.
Hii Kenya yetu. Anyway, let's continue the conversations in coming days. We'll discuss this Ndegwa Commission report and the import of what it has done to us as a country. CT, the day's proverb.
Mchonga mwiko.
Mchanganuzi.
Hukimbiza mkono wake. You know, I was trying to relate this, even as we were talking, I was thinking, the mwiko that we're referring to here, and the people who chonga it, yes, they themselves may save their hands from fire, but there are other people who have to deal with the aftermath of the activities who are actually right in the fire. Yes.
And those ones, nobody cares about them.
No, nobody does.
Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for tuning in. Have a lovely Thursday through the day, and then join us again tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Have a lovely day, 10 o'clock.